Dang dang. The dense arrows all hit Miller, who was stabbed like a hedgehog. There was a smile on Miller's face. Armed with defense, he didn't feel anything at all. Soon after, the familiar voice in my mind rang again. Conqueror's Hockey and the sweet fruit carrier Boa Hancock have been captured, and now they are copied, 1%, 50%, 100%, and the copy is complete. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Conqueror's Hockey and sweet fruit. The sound of the system just fell. An external force poured into the body, warm, very familiar and comfortable. Perfume femur. When Miller was stunned, Boa Hancock killed him head-on, and his white calf swept Miller's face. His eyes dazzled and he grabbed it directly with his big hand. Boom. The seemingly soft feat contained majestic power, and the moment he grasped it, Miller's palm was kicked and hurt. The strength is not bad, he thought to himself. At this time, a sly arc swept across Hancock's pretty face. Click. There was a crackling noise from his right arm, and Miller couldn't feel his whole hand. Looking down, his right hand quickly petrified and spread to the entire arm. Before long, Miller will become a stone sculpture. This is the price you pay for looking down on people, Boa Hancock said coldly. After a few seconds, Miller's body was petrified, and he became a heavy stone sculpture, with his hand still grasping. The jade finger touched her soft lips, and Boa Hancock once again made an archery posture. Only when Miller's stone sculpture was completely destroyed could she feel relieved. Click. Regrettably, cracks appeared in the stone carving before she attacked. Boa Hancock's beautiful eyes stared slightly. What's the situation? The stone sculpture fell off in a large area, as if it was molting, and Miller emerged intact. How could it be okay? Boa Hancock's face flushed, which was unacceptable. Petrochemical can only be unlocked by her sweet fruit ability. Why did Miller do it? Has he already copied the abilities of his concubine? This absurd idea suddenly appeared in his mind. Miller didn't care what Boa Hancock was in there. He popped a ball of lightning with his fingers, 100 million volts Thunder Dragon. The Thunder Dragon was several feet long, biting away with its teeth and mouth open. Boa Hancock quickly drew away, but the Thunder Dragon flicked his tail sharply, and his speed skyrocketed. A huge lightning flashed on the desperate Boa Hancock. How could her speed be comparable to lightning? Rumble. The Thunder Dragon exploded on Boa Hancock's body, causing a wide range of burns to her body. The powerful impact blew her away, and her body flew out like a broken kite. Puff. Water splashed everywhere on the distant sea, and Boa Hancock fell into the sea feebly. The so-called Shichibukai was killed by Miller with overwhelming power. After falling into the water, Boa Hancock thumped on all fours. The capable people were all land ducks. Sooner or later, she drowned. Sister. The two sisters who broke out of the sandstorm were also full of holes. They looked at Boa Hancock in the deep sea and sobbed. The gap is too big. Oh. Boa Hancock continued to struggle, her belly was bulging, and it was not difficult to see that the filling was all water. At this moment, the two sisters looked at each other and seemed to have made some decision, with a face of determination. Puff. The two of them knelt in front of Miller, with tears in their eyes, and begged, Master Miller, our 9-Snake Island is willing to surrender. I hope you will let your sister go. It doesn't count what you two said. Boa Hancock is the emperor. Miller said leisurely, smoking his cigar comfortably. The light in the eyes flashed away. Did he come to 9-Snake Island just to pick up girls? This is only part of the reason. He actually wants to intervene in the top war with Boa Hancock. Shock fruit, lava fruit, frozen fruit, Sengoku's everyone fruit, and Whitebeard Pirate's phoenix fruit, Jose's diamond fruit, and other powerful powers. These powerful forces are what Miller yearns for. We are sure to persuade sister. The two sisters said anxiously. Miller can be so leisurely, but Boa Hancock can't hold it. Okay. My uncle reluctantly agreed. If she still doesn't understand it later, think it yourself. A burst of gravity erupted from Miller's palm, and Boa Hancock, who had fallen into the water, was immediately sucked up. Miller put it on the ground, but because Boa Hancock had taken in too much seawater, his belly swelled like a pregnant woman in October. His face was also paler than ever before, and his body was filled with a breath of dusk. Only a faint breath was left. Quickly push the seawater out of my sister's belly. The two sisters slapped Boa Hancock's belly, squeezing the seawater out. Go away, let me come. What do you guys do? Uncle is the best at this kind of thing. As soon as Miller saw skin close, he pushed the two away. He put his big hand on Boa Hancock's belly, squeezing gently. Boa Hancock's small mouth was like a fountain, and the seawater spurted out one after another, and her heartbeat gradually returned to normal. 5 minutes later, Boa Hancock's stomach calmed down, but she was still unconscious. Sister, Shouldn't there be any accidents? The two sisters glanced at each other, both extremely anxious. After all, Boa Hancock was flooded in the sea for a long time. I understand. Miller's eyes lit up, and the two sisters looked at him blankly. This requires artificial respiration. Miller gave an answer that made the two of them collapse, and they couldn't stop them. Miller leaned directly towards Boa Hancock's face. However, just as soon as he succeeded, Boa Hancock suddenly opened his eyes. Miller stayed, and the two looked at each other like this, with their eyes facing each other, for about a second or two. Who made you wake up early? You need artificial respiration before you can wake up. Snap it. Miller swept a flash of light from his right arm, forcibly stunned Boa Hancock, and then the artificial respiration was successfully performed. Half a day later, inside the palace of Nine Snake Island. After Boa Hancock woke up, she retched and retched. She rushed into the bathroom for the first time, drank a lot of water, and then vomited fiercely. In addition, I brushed my teeth for another half an hour. In addition, Boa Hancock went to take a shower as quickly as possible, and it took several hours to soak. The door was also locked, including her two younger sisters. In the hot steam-filled bathroom, Boa Hancock was silent, curled up in a corner of the pool. Sometimes the eyes flashed with awe-inspiring light, and sometimes a lot of helplessness emerged. In the face of Miller, she had more than enough heart but not enough energy. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Above the roof, there was a slight movement suddenly, as if someone was walking. Boa Hancock's beautiful eyes immediately chilled. Anyone dare to come and peep? She clenched Shu's fist, and when she was about to attack, she suddenly changed. Boom. Perhaps because the roof tiles were too crisp, the man smashed the roof into a hole, and then fell into the water with a thud. Boa Hancock hurriedly put his nightgown on him. Hancock, don't be nervous, I am here. Miller got out of the water wet, and said lightly, the bear guy didn't bounce me to the predetermined location. Now I have come to realize my dream, don't panic. He always wanted to start like Luffy's straw hat. The moment he saw Miller, Boa Hancock tensed his nerves, his face was on guard, he was nervous only when he saw you. Miller walked towards Boa Hancock, and finally sat next to her. Would you mind taking a bath together? The concubine must mind. Go out now. Boa Hancock scolded angrily. Ha ha ha. You mind that it's your business. Anyway, Lousy doesn't mind it. Miller grinned. Who cares about your feelings? Also, be polite when you speak, and don't forget what is still on me. Even if you don't think about yourself, think about your two younger sisters. Miller took out a transparent cube in his hand, which contained a lively beating heart. Shameless. Boa Hancock yelled. Miller was extremely sinister. Boa Hancock is not afraid of death. She is stubborn and will not compromise with Miller even if she dies in battle. Miller knew this well, so he took the hearts of Boa Hancock's two sisters and threatened them. With the ability of Op Fruit, Miller can also cut the human body at will, depriving the opponent's organs. Shameless? If I am not shameless, you will die alone in the future. Miller responded disapprovingly, and then secretly stretched out the salty pig's hand. Snapped. Boa Hancock patted it unceremoniously, and the pretty face was full of shadows. The artificial respiration that lasted for half an hour made her nauseous and broken. So come this set? What makes Boa Hancock stupefied the most is that he obviously wakes up. This guy forcibly corona her for artificial respiration. How can there be such a brazen guy? You are too far apart. Miller complained, and then slowly said, I'm here to find you for something. Say. Boa Hancock exhaled, just wanting to send Miller away as soon as possible. How do you feel like the boss in this tone? Miller was very depressed, and preached straight to the point. This time the naval headquarters is convened, you go too, and I will join you in the fun. Are you going to copy Devil Fruit? Boa Hancock sneered. If this is the case, I advise you to give up as soon as possible. You know, the least popular thing on the sea right now is not for emperors. But you. Miller twitched the corners of his mouth when he heard this. Speaking of this, he read a newspaper a few days ago and didn't know which boring newspaper had such courage. He gave a list of the most hated pirates in the world. At the top of the list is Miller, followed by Kaido, Whitebeard, and the Ant. This is not a problem at all. Miller smiled weirdly, his eyes flashing green. How cunning he looked. Actually, I have already prepared the trump cards in this regard. When I was in Alabasta a few days ago, I got a special ability. I was not willing to use it before. Now the opportunity is here. This time, Lousy will copy all the abilities of those Marine Admiral and 4 Emperors. Miller's eyes were full of ambition. Boa Hancock squinted at Miller. She didn't want to participate in this war because it was not good for Hydra Island. But if Miller forces her to participate, it seems there is nothing he can do to refuse. When will you leave? In desperation, Boa Hancock compromised. Don't worry, just before the naval headquarters battle begins. Seeing that Boa Hancock had compromised, Miller slid out the salty pig's hand again. Snapped. Boa Hancock still reacted very quickly, and without giving face, slapped him away again. Damn, you woman doesn't talk about feelings at all, Miller said furiously, his hands hurting. You take advantage of me, and I want to talk to you? Boa Hancock sneered. The use of farts, I let you be my little brother. This is your blessing on the island of Hydra. Miller reminded. That Usopp is Usopp's son. You killed him. Do you think red hair pirates will give up? With the power of your 9-snake island, you can't stop the 4 emperors, you still have to count on Uncle Miller at that time. The corners of Boa Hancock's mouth twitched, and the ghost knew that the man who broke in casually was Usopp's son. But everyone is dead, and Boa Hancock can't help it. Do you have the face to say, no, just you sent him here? Boa Hancock retorted. But I didn't let you kill him. It's the fault of 9-snake island. Don't throw the pot around. In addition, Miller glanced at the back of Boa Hancock. The eye-catching dragon's hoof was nothing more than a lie. Those damn dragon pigs actually branded this kind of thing on the woman I fancy. I will definitely call Marie Joyce someday to help you vent your anger. Speaking of this, Boa Hancock's pretty face suddenly became stiff, and a trace of long-lost fear appeared in his beautiful eyes. The time when Marie Joyce was a slave was the darkest moment in her life. She has suffered humiliation and torture, and that kind of nightmare life can still be dreamed when she has nightmares occasionally. Should I bring that female celestial dragon slave over to relieve you? Miller leaned in and asked with a smiley face. With just these simple words, Boa Hancock's heartstrings moved. Because of the sufferings of the slave period, she was extremely disgusted with celestial dragons, but she did not have the capital to compete. Hearing that Miller killed celestial dragons and even tamed the female celestial dragons into slaves, she felt relieved. The good feeling came. But after hearing that Miller beat Rayleigh, she started to hate this guy again. Rayleigh and Shaggy helped a lot because they escaped Marie Joyce, and Boa Hancock was grateful. Until now, looking at Miller in front of her, she was basically sure that this guy was a complete villain. Unnecessary. Boa Hancock responded coldly, and then left in a bathrobe. Before leaving, he turned his head and glanced at Miller. The concubine will fulfill your request and participate in Marine's plan this time. But I don't want any accidents between Mary and Sonia. Hearing this, Miller raised his hand and made an okay gesture. Impel down the 6th floor eternal hell. In the deepest part of this dark prison, the prisoners who can be held here are either death row prisoners or life imprisonment. Most of the prisoners who can be here are almost legendary characters. They have been erased from history because of their extreme viciousness. In order to cause unnecessary the riots and evil deeds done by the government will be concealed by the government. Ta ta ta. In the dark corridor, a sound of footsteps sounded. Oh yeah. Is anyone here? Interesting. Look, it's this smelly old man. You are not dead yet, Garp. He put me in, damn marine hero. The prisoners on the 6th floor were awakened because they were the marine hero Garp. Some prisoners were thrown into impelled down after being defeated by Garp. The so-called enemies were extremely jealous when they met, and everyone stared at him in anger. Garp walked with a sullen face when he stopped abruptly. The old man is in a bad mood today. You'd better not find it uncomfortable, otherwise. Garp raised his head, his cold face appeared in his eyes condensed with the biting cold light, and the 6th floor where the strong gathered suddenly fell silent. They are all monsters of the old age, and Garp's toughness is not something they can shake, and the consequences of angering this old man are disastrous. Led by the jailer, Garp came to a remote cell. In the darkness, a man with a sparrow on Madara's face looked up, and when he saw Garp, he was quite surprised. I didn't expect it to be you, old man. His voice was extremely hoarse, and his mouth was trembling. Garp looked down at him condescendingly. Maybe because of a bad heart, this man didn't dare to look at Garp and moved his eyes away. Why don't you listen to the old man's advice and become a shit pirate? It's just a bunch of rubbish. Is it that attractive to you, Ace? Garp roared, the corners of his eyes moist. This veteran who has been fighting for Marine for decades is as strong as steel, but at the moment he shed tears. Garp's clenched fist suddenly loosened, and immediately clenched it again. Pirates are not worthy of sympathy, but their loved ones are different. Garp's task is to escort Ace to naval headquarters, waiting for the upcoming execution. I don't regret it. A free life on the sea is what I long for. Ace mustered up the courage and looked directly into Garp's eyes. Daddy treats me more than his biological father. I am honored to be his son. Even if I die, I have no regrets in my life. The only pity is that I didn't kill the traitor Teach. Thinking of Blackbeard, Ace secretly blamed himself again, and blamed himself for being weak and defeated. In fact, the fuse of all this is not Blackbeard. Without him, nothing would happen. Maybe he was having a party with everyone in the Whitebeard Pirates. You still don't repent until now, Ace. Garp looked at Ace for a moment, then gave a wry smile. This is really like Roger, stubborn. Ace. Open the prison door and take Ace away. Garp glanced at the jailer, then turned his head and left. Family affection and lifelong faith, Garp finally chose faith. Grandfather, Ace yelled ashamedly. He had hardly called Grandpa Garp, usually called an old man, but looking at Garp's lonely figure, he was particularly guilty. Garp shuddered as if struck by lightning, and the teardrops slid down again, and then accelerated away. He was afraid that he didn't hold back and let Ace go, so that he would be Marine's sinner. On the side of Hydra Island, Marine's battleship was docked in the nearby sea, and he dared not approach it rashly. The lead as a Marine Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel, he is responsible for receiving Boa Hancock. In the cabin, the Flying Squirrel looked at the phone worm in his hand, and after hesitating again and again, he dialed the phone worm. This is for contacting Boa Hancock. I contacted Boa Hancock before, hoping that she would participate in the war as Shichibukai, but she was rejected on the grounds of boring. After that, the Flying Squirrel called again, but the result was the same: refused. It's the third time now, and there are only 3 things. If Boa Hancock still refuses, the Flying Squirrel will rush back to Naval Headquarters, and then Boa Hancock's Shichibukai position will be abolished. Blue blue blue. The phone worm rang quickly, and no one answered it for more than 20 seconds. When Vice Admiral, the Flying Squirrel, was about to give up, the opposite Boa Hancock suddenly connected. Marine, you are so annoying. Boa Hancock's voice was extremely cold and disgusting. Boa Hancock, in this battle of Naval Headquarters, are you participating or rejecting it? After being rejected twice, Vice Admiral, the Flying Squirrel, was also a little impatient. My concubine changed my mind temporarily. You can wait there, I'll be there later. Haha. Boa Hancock hung up the phone worm, and Vice Admiral, the Flying Squirrel, also smiled after a stay. Fortunately, I waited any longer, or I almost brought out a troublesome enemy for Marine. The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral didn't know why Boa Hancock changed his mind. Before, the woman was very determined and didn't mean to maneuver at all. It has changed suddenly now, a woman, really fickle. About half an hour later, a battleship finally appeared on the distant sea. Vice Admiral took a look at the telescope, and the pirate flag fluttered in the wind. It was the 9 snakes and pirates who came. It's cheering me up, the most dangerous woman in the sea is here. The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral bit the tip of his tongue, and the sting made his brain sober. Don't look at the other person who claims to be the most beautiful woman on the sea, but she is also the most dangerous and terrifying woman. A little carelessness in front of Boa Hancock may turn into a cold stone. Nearly 10 minutes later, the Hydra pirates finally approached the Marine battleship. Boa Hancock appeared on the deck, and the soldiers on the Marine battleship waved their arms in excitement. Master Hancock, it's our honor to see you. Welcome to our ship. My goddess, take a look and go now. I am willing to die. I am willing to bet on the lives of everyone present, as long as I and Master Hancock say something. Boa Hancock's impeccable beauty showed great lethality, and the Marines on the battleship drooled. Fools, do you want me to throw you into the sea to wake up? The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral's face was blue, and the peripheral light also glanced at Boa Hancock. With this simple glance, his gaze suddenly froze. The perfect face is like Poppy, which makes people want to stop. The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral's breathing accelerated, and his face gradually turned red, panting like a cow. Damn. I'm Vice Admiral from Marine, how can I be so fascinated by the mere pirates? The Flying Squirrel bit his tongue fiercely, a burst of blood burst into his mouth, and his cheek twitched with pain. However, the charm brought by Boa Hancock's beauty has also been greatly weakened. Let down the stairs. The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral gave a loud shout, and the Marines also withdrew their gazes. The wooden stairs were placed on the battleship of the Hydra pirates, and the 2 ships were connected together. Boa Hancock did not hesitate, and walked with graceful steps. There was another person behind her, Marigold. Hold on. The Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral suddenly came up to stop Boa Hancock and explained. This war is only an invitation to Shichibukai. As for your subordinates, not in the convening range. Mole Vice Admiral stared at Marigold, the meaning was obvious, let her go back. Presumptuous, don't the concubine have the right to take a person? Boa Hancock tilted his head back, facing the sky, pointing at the mole in a downward attitude. Vice Admiral scolded. If Sengoku knew that I had given up this call because of Mary, guess what he would do with you? Upon hearing this, Vice Admiral, the Flying Squirrel, gave Boa Hancock a blank look, and then took the initiative to withdraw, giving way to the 2 of them. Master Hancock, we have arranged 2 high-quality guest rooms. Immediately, Marine came up to flatter him, actually wanting to smell Boa Hancock's body. No, we can live in one room, you say yes, my sister. Marigold hugged Boa Hancock's waist from behind. Boa Hancock struggled for a while, glaring at Marigold with a small face. It's up to you. Thank you, my sister. Marigold smiled happily. It's so weird. Flying Squirrel Vice Admiral looked at the back of the two of them, and couldn't help frowning. He always felt that something was wrong, but if he looked closely, it seemed that there was no flaw. There is another point that puzzled him. The 3 sisters have always been in pairs, acting together every time. Since you brought Marigold, why didn't you bring Sandersonia? Confusing. Forget it, just get on the ship. You don't dare to do any tricks when you go to naval headquarters. After pondering and pondering, there was no clue about the flying squirrel. Vice Admiral was relieved. At that time, he went to naval headquarters. There are many strong players. Are you afraid that Boa Hancock will not be able to play insidious tricks? Boom. After entering the room, Marigold closed the door directly and locked it. You'd better not touch me indiscriminately, next time I can't help but maybe expose it. Boa Hancock scolded Marigold angrily. I believe you. Marigold put a hand on her face, tapped lightly on her cheek, and became Miller. If this scene is seen by Marine outside, it is estimated that the 3 views will collapse. That Marigold, is Miller actually disguised? How about it? Very good ability. Miller lay down on the sofa and said, this ability clone fruit, I have rarely used it. I am waiting for such a big occasion as a war. Clone fruit. When he went to Alabasta, Miller met Crocodile's subordinate Mr. 2 Bentham. He is Paramisha's clone fruit ability. This ability is to copy him. Clone fruit can become anyone who has ever remembered, including face, body and voice. This is the reason why the Mole Vice Admiral found it strange, but couldn't find the flaw. After all, even the voice of speaking was imitated, which was exactly the same as Marigold's deity. A crooked door. Boa Hancock glanced at Miller, sneered with disdain. Yes. A hint of playfulness flashed in Miller's eyes, and then he slapped his cheek again. Boom. Miller became Boa Hancock this time, and there was no difference in appearance. Are you crazy? Boa Hancock went crazy. Hey, don't mind, I just want to tell you, this is not a tasteless ability, anyone in my memory can change. Miller said triumphantly. He suddenly felt heavy in front of him. He looked down and saw that it was. Gee ha ha ha. Miller let out a laugh that made Boa Hancock's scalp numb. I suddenly thought it was fun to touch myself. After speaking, Miller moved, grabbing all over his body. Asshole, stop me. Boa Hancock, who couldn't stand it, pounced directly. His eyes are too hot. Although that is not the deity, but looking at exactly the same self. Cough cough cough. In a word, she is very angry. The bastard Miller deceived so much that Boa Hancock couldn't help it. The two were like children. Miller ran in front and Boa Hancock chased after him, seeming to forget that this was a Marine battleship. The Marine who eavesdropped outside was strange because Boa Hancock kept shouting pervert pervert. Does this pair of sisters have any strange hobbies? The Marines looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. The two stopped playing for a long time. During this time, Boa Hancock would inevitably suffer. Miller's salted pork knuckles have made a lot of bargains. After all, she is inferior to Miller in terms of shamelessness and strength. In addition, Miller also contacted his crew by the way. Little ones, you should return to Sabodi Archipelago now, and I will be there soon, and then everyone will go to the Fishman Island. Miller said to the phone worm. The one who answered it was Bartolomeo. Boss, everything is ready, just waiting for you, Bartolomeo responded. When Miller left, they had already coded the battleship. As for the Ark Proverbs, they were also coded. In fact, they could leap over the red line by relying on the Ark Proverbs. However, Robin made repeated orders and had to look at the historical text of the Fishman Island. Miller also agreed. She was famously named for Robin, but she actually fell in love with a little girl Shirahoshi. Such a big beauty, impeccable appearance, our ancient weapon Poseidon, cheap Luffy that stinky boy is not a loss. Naval headquarters have many marlins. The fortifications that should be built have been built, the execution platform is in the many squares in Marin, and the fire fist ace has been locked on it. Under the execution platform, nearly 100,000 Marines were waiting for their lives. There are also reporters from all over the world. It's not difficult to see that Marine is going to be a big hit this time. In the Marshal's office, Sengoku looked at the densely populated Marine in the square, his old face was flying, and he was extremely confident. With such a strong force, San Admiral and Shichibukai can clean up the Whitebeard pirates. Marshal Sengoku, something is not good, Suddenly a guard rushed in and said in a panic, Blackbeard grabbed a warship and ran away. There is such a thing. Sengoku hammered the table hard when he heard that. At the beginning, he didn't trust Blackbeard much. He and Whitebeard are old rivals, and even Whitebeard has been pitted by Blackbeard, enough to see how cunning this guy is. Need to send Admiral to pursue? The adjutant asked. That guy has calculated the time. Marine and the Whitebeard pirates are about to fight. There is no extra force to take care of him. Sengoku's cheeks were gloomy enough to drip water. Not only Whitebeard, but even Blackbeard pitted him. Immediately give orders to all marine bases under us. Let them pay attention, don't be attacked. Sengoku doesn't know what Blackbeard is doing, so he can only ask his men to be careful. Ta 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 ta. Outside the corridor, there was another messy footstep, and another guard ran in. Marshal Sengoku, the empress of one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Boa Hancock, has arrived. It's finally here. Shichibukai is also assembled, and the meeting can begin. Sengoku nodded thoughtfully. At first he thought Boa Hancock was going to give up Shichibukai. Looking at the distant sea, a warship was approaching quickly. The battleship carried Boa Hancock and Miller, but Miller became Marigold again. Immediately after landing in Marlin, someone came to greet him. Not to mention, Boa Hancock, a woman with a big face, actually came to meet him by Vice Admiral. Although this woman is only a Vice Admiral, she is also a Marine veteran in terms of qualifications. Boa Hancock was taken by Vice Admiral to attend the meeting. Admiral and some Vice Admiral and Shichibukai will also participate. They are the main combatants. The general content is to discuss how to defend against the Whitebeard pirates. Miller was placed in a room at Naval Headquarters. The good show is almost ready to begin. Miller patted his cheek with a big hand, returning to his original appearance. Looking at the thousands of Marines on Marlin's many squares, Miller finally walked out with his head swaggered. Step out with a new look. On the sea leading to Impel Down, a Marine battleship surmounted all obstacles and sailed at the fastest speed. Jihahaha. Only fools can give Marine to their lives, now is my chance. Standing on the deck, Blackbeard opened his hands to embrace the sky, as if to hold the whole world in his hands, ambitious. Impel Down's Magellan is not a fuel-efficient lamp, Raffet reminded him. As for Burgess, Poison Q, Van Oka and others, Miller killed them all. Blackbeard's plan is very simple. While Marine and Whitebeard pirate group attack Impel Down, and release the pirates in the 6th layer of Eternal Hell, and choose the strongest to become a companion. New World's struggle is extremely cruel, and it is hoped that he can't hold it alone. He needs a strong partner. At the highest meeting of Naval Headquarters, Sengoku delivered a series of speeches. Blackbeard ran away. Sengoku didn't hide it, and everyone was surprised to hear that. How long has this guy just become Shichibukai? That's an extremely dangerous man. Aokiji frowned. Fufufufu. It is getting more and more interesting. Doflamingo, one of Shichibukai, smiled strangely. The members of the Whitebeard pirates have not come yet. When is Marine planning to delay it? Hawkeye puts his feet on the table, his hat covers his face, as if sleeping. If they don't come, shall we wait forever? I know Whitebeard. He will definitely come. He might be on the road right now. Sengoku is absolutely sure. The two sides have fought for decades. Can Sengoku still not understand this old opponent? Garp kept his head down. He was confused and didn't know what to do. Garp. A soft voice sounded, and a hand was placed on his shoulder. You have been a Marine for decades. Are you confused at this moment? The speaker, Vice Admiral, was comforting him. Of course not, but that is my grandson after all. Garp closed his eyes in pain. His palms and backs were all fleshy. How should he choose? Ace. Dad is here to save you. Outside, the majestic voice suddenly resounded across the sky. Could it be? General Marine and Shichibukai who were in the meeting were all in a daze, and they all rushed to the window. A stalwart body stands here on the numerous squares in Marin. It's Whitebeard. How did this guy get in, and just alone? Sengoku was stunned by the thunder. He stared at the 6-meter-high body. His whole body was scarred, and he could see that he had gone through countless battles. A meniscus-shaped beard with a black lens. Isn't it Whitebeard or who? But where is his fleet? He suddenly appeared like a ghost. Will this guy sneak into Marlin in advance? The strongest man in the world has arrived, ready to fight. With the appearance of Whitebeard, 100,000 Marine is highly nervous even if he is single. Even if he is old, he is still the king of the sea. In a fit of anger, Marlin may be overthrown directly. It shouldn't be. The most confusing one is Sengoku. According to his vision, Whitebeard will inevitably lead the entire pirate team in Marine shopping. Who knew that Whitebeard had killed him alone now? Is it possible that a super luxury lineup such as 100,000 Marine and Shichibukai is to deal with Whitebeard alone? Even if such a battle is won, it would be a shame for Marine. Everyone knows that Marine used 100,000 people to bully an old man in his 70s. It's finally here. With a lightly cut the black knife in Hawkeye's hand, the window was cut, and he jumped out. The body flew past like a geese and landed right in front of Whitebeard. Go away. Whitebeard made a very straightforward sentence, completely disregarding Yinyan's Shichibukai. It's not that I look down on it, mainly because I don't have the devil fruit ability. He raised his head and looked at the Akainu, Sengoku and other Marine high levels on the top of the building. In full view, Whitebeard raised his middle finger. I'm not targeting anyone, I'm saying that the Marines who were particularly present are all spicy chickens. Whitebeard took the initiative to provoke, which made the reporters quickly take pictures. This is Whitebeard, one of the legendary 3 great pirates. Even if he is over 70 years old, even if he picks 100,000 people with one, he is still not afraid. Whitebeard today seems a bit strange. Sengoku whispered in his heart, and he looked at Whitebeard, feeling weird. Obviously close at hand, there is a very strange feeling. If you dare not do it, Lousy will open fire. Seeing Marine standing still, Whitebeard's muscles suddenly thickened. Immediately afterwards, a supreme domineering aura swept out, tearing the world apart. Boom rumble. Boom rumble. Boom rumble. Conqueror's Haki burst out mightily, engulfing the entire naval headquarters in an instant, and hundreds of thousands of Marine elites suddenly fell down. Even the naval headquarters building tens of meters high was shaking constantly, and the glass cracked completely. Let him go on like this, naval headquarters will collapse. Aokiji stepped forward, violently cold. Whitebeard's Conqueror's Haki is like a steady stream of river water, always permeating the atmosphere, as if it will not stop, and continue to sweep the naval headquarters. Hulala. The biting cold wind fell from the sky and swallowed him in the blink of an eye. Whitebeard's skin immediately condensed with a layer of ice. The ground around him quickly froze and expanded to other places. This ability to manipulate ice, Kuzan Admiral made it. The Marines raised their arms and shouted. Looking around, Whitebeard had turned into an ice sculpture. Under the sunlight, Whitebeard's ice sculpture gleamed. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Until 10 seconds passed, he did not shatter the ice. At Whitebeard's level, even if he is old, this level of ice can't freeze him. Sengoku was not happy, but felt more and more weird. Next, let the old man blast him to pieces. Next to Sengoku, another person burst out, and the bright red figure made everyone's pupils shrink. Admiral Akainu, action. Could it be that? Can it be that? However, Boa Hancock suddenly realized, she also thought it was strange before. Marine is so tightly guarded, it is impossible for Whitebeard to enter so inexplicably, and still be alone. Does that madman use clone fruit to become Whitebeard? This absurd idea came to mind. In the crystal ice sculpture, if you look closely, you will find that the corners of Whitebeard's mouth are slightly raised. Seems to be laughing. Frozen fruit and observation Haki and armament Haki carrier Aokiji have been captured, and now they are copied. 1%, 50%, 100%, and copying is complete. Congratulations to the host for obtaining frozen fruit and seeing and hearing color and armament Haki. The stiff and cold voice resounded through his mind, and the frozen Whitebeard was even happier. Yes, this Whitebeard is actually Miller's fake clone fruit. After copying frozen fruit, Miller shook his arm hard, and the frozen ice broke apart on its own. The ice cubes fell off quickly, but before he took 2 steps, the scorching airflow blew. Great eruption. A huge fist of magma filled his pupils, and Miller's face was flushed. In the eyes of outsiders, perhaps this is baked out of magma. After all, Akainu's lava fruit is known for its ferocity, and the sky is burnt red. In fact, Miller was pure excitement. Lava fruit, known as the devil fruit with the highest single attack power, is so powerful that it almost hits a hole. Can he not get excited when he encounters such a good thing? Miller opened his arms to embrace the magma fist. Thank you for your generosity, Akainu. Rumble. The flames of lava hit Miller with a heavy fist, his fist exploded, and his entire body was swallowed by the flame. The super destructive power of magma directly burned a large hole in the ground. Miller lay motionless in it, and his body was also covered with a thick layer of black ash. Even if Whitebeard was hit by Sakazuki Admiral's magma, there was no good fruit. Marines are pleased. First Aokiji, then Akainu. Even if Whitebeard is strong, it can't stop Admiral's repeated attacks, right? Ha 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 ha. But soon after slapped his face, Miller laughed wildly and stood up, waving his arms excitedly. Some of the Marines were confused. Was this old king of the sea beaten stupid? Only Boa Hancock, who was watching the battle silently, knew why. As early as in Logetown, Miller copied the glittering fruit of Kizaru. Now they have been attacked by Aokiji and Akainu one after another, and devil fruit is probably also copied. Unexpectedly, one day, Marine's 3 admiral abilities will appear in the same person. Boa Hancock couldn't imagine the shocking scene. Lava in one hand, ice in the other hand, laser shot in both eyes? Impossible. And Akainu is undoubtedly the most gaff. Whitebeard is unscathed, and there is only a layer of magma ash falling on his body. What's this kidding? Not to mention Whitebeard, who has passed its peak. Even if Whitebeard comes in its heyday, it is impossible to be unscathed by the blow of himself. After all, the attack Akainu just now didn't reserve the strength. He really wanted to kill Whitebeard. Father, what's wrong? Don't talk about Akainu and others. Even if the son of Ace can see, this Whitebeard is a bit heaven-defying at this moment. It's also strange. So far, Whitebeard has not used his shock fruit. This is the most incomprehensible part. That is his specialty. Did he give up using it? Of course, not only Ace, even Sengoku and other Marine also understand this. Just now Akainu's Magma Fist, including Aokiji's Ice Cube, Whitebeard can actually use Shock Fruit's ability to push back. But he did not do so. Crane, do you think Whitebeard is a bit unusual? Still unaware of it, Sengoku looked at Vice Admiral Crane. This guy in front of us. Crane Vice Admiral's eyes are clear. Regardless of her age, she is still Marine's biggest think tank. Perhaps it's not Whitebeard at all. Whitebeard came from our age. You don't know how strong it is. Even though it's old, it's not impossible to fight back. It's useless. Shock Fruit is not that he is old, but that he may be nothing, he Vice Admiral guessed boldly. Since appearing in naval headquarters, Whitebeard has been beaten all the time, which is unreasonable. Huh. Before Vice Admiral finished speaking, the black shadow on the ground jumped into the sky. It's Whitebeard here. Sengoku reacted first, and when he was about to attack, a flash of light whizzed out. Kizaru appeared above Miller's head in an instant, kicking out with a heavy foot covered in glitter. This nosy fellow, Miller cursed in his heart, and quickly raised his arms to defend. Sengoku was about to attack himself, but the bastard Kizaru came out to make trouble. Boom. Kizaru's heavy foot hit Miller's arm, and his body slammed into the ground like a cannonball, sinking into the mud. Bachichang Guyu. With a strong flick of both hands, thousands of brilliance fell at the same time. Rumble. Countless light bombs hit Miller, and his surroundings exploded continuously for a full minute or so. Akainu is also exerting strength here. His body is like a flood discharge dam. Massive magma flows out, all flowing towards the place where Miller is. Aokiji didn't paddle anymore, he just squeezed it, and he created a beautiful iceberg with a hockey puck in his mouth. The Marines immediately relaxed. 3 Admiral attacked Whitebeard one after another. Can this old immortal keep on going? Whoosh whoosh. Where Miller was, a powerful air current erupted, and the nearby ice and magma all flowed back. Instead, those Marines were trapped by ice and magma. Wind? Sengoku's pupils are round, and Whitebeard is a shock fruit ability. How can he control the wind? Miller focused his gaze on Sengoku. All 3 of Admiral's abilities. What would it be like to lack a marshal? He clenched his fists and made an attacking gesture, but who knew it was already a step too late. Buzzing. Waves of golden energy circles spread across the sky and the earth, spreading away like water patterns. Sengoku has turned into a golden Buddha with a huge shockwave in his palm. Whether you are Whitebeard or not, dare to do anything wrong in naval headquarters and kill. Sengoku's face was full of solemnity. The entire naval headquarters was shaking, and the sea was also making waves. Upon seeing this, Miller smiled calmly, lowered his fist, pointed to his head and said, "You trash. What time is wasted? The uncle is standing here. Give me a good fight. Don't King crooked. Die." Sengoku was anxious, and with a strong push with his big hand, the spherical shockwave evolved into a devastating shockwave. The moment it swept across the ground was immediately flattened by several meters. Miller is also a lunatic, so he rushed forward for fear of not being able to hit him. Rumble. The shockwave finally hit Miller's body head on. His whole body seemed to be run over by several mountains, and his bones were crackling. But he just didn't make any pitfalls. Instead he smiled, as if caught in a daze. At the same time, the light above his head condensed again, and Miller opened his eyes wide and saw that it was a wretched cheek. Kizaru, it's you dog again. Kick at the speed of light. The familiar smelly feet came again, and Miller suffered heavy chest injuries and fell straight to the sea outside the harbor. Daddy. Ace stood up ashamed, blaming himself in his heart. Knowing the terrible ending now, he might as well die happily. Puff. The waves of the sea splashed, Miller fell into the sea, and the turbulent naval headquarters stopped for a moment. Those with the ability will undoubtedly die if they fall into the sea. I'm sure, that guy is definitely not Whitebeard, how should he pretend to be Whitebeard? So far I haven't used Whitebeard's shock fruit, this is the biggest flaw. Sengoku said solemnly. Whitebeard doesn't have such a strong defense. Akainu was also full of displeasure, hoping that the punch that made meritorious deeds would not be the slightest lethality. Then who is he? Sengoku's face was dark, and F*K hadn't figured out who the enemy was. Wow. 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 The sea suddenly bubbled up, and just when everyone thought Miller was about to come out, a pirate flag burst out of the water. The cross-shaped skull and the crescent-shaped beard on the mouth are too high in recognition. Boom. Before Sengoku and other marines called out the name of the Whitebeard pirate group, a huge battleship emerged from the bottom of the sea. Moby Dick. The marines exclaimed, and it was the Moby Dick that came into view. The entire ship is coated, and apparently they sneaked in from under the ocean floor. And Whitebeard himself was standing on the front deck with his lungs. Gu la la la, Sengoku, is my lovely son all right? Whitebeard asked with a grin. Although his voice was old, he was full of heroic temperament. That's really a fake. Sengoku breathed fire in his eyes, the real Whitebeard came, and the strong sense of disharmony disappeared. So, who is that bastard before? Marines are all shocked, what the hell is this? Something's wrong. Not only the marine side, the members of the Whitebeard pirate group are also confused. Father, it seems that war has started. The captain of the first squad, Marco, looked at the large silhouettes of people falling down, and the damaged buildings, and was taken aback. Although Whitebeard didn't say anything, he was very puzzled. Someone did it in advance? In the deep sea, Miller was happily swimming around like a fish. Everyone has the ability to form the great Buddha, and Sengoku of Conqueror's Haki Buddha has been captured, and now we are copying it, 1%. The sound of the system that Miller was looking forward to resounded again, exulting. The abilities of Marine E, Admiral and Marshal Sengoku have been replicated. This time the mission has been completed 50%. Although there are still many outstanding abilities, such as Garp's Haki, Marine has clearly seen the clues. One more thing, the main reason is that Miller couldn't play anymore. He looked at the huge battleship on the sea, the genuine card came, and his counterfeit was naturally exposed. The copy is complete. Congratulations to host for acquiring the form of Conqueror's Haki and the giant Buddha of everyone fruit. The cold voice sounded again, and Miller's feet and hands thumped vigorously, swimming towards the surface of the water. Gu la la la, Sengoku, it seems that the marine you lead has caused a lot of trouble. Whitebeard looked up to the sky and laughed, and immediately raised his arms, his fists like sandbags condensed into a circular gas mask. Click. The atmosphere suddenly burst, and dense white cracks appeared in the entire sky. Shock fruit. This is the real Whitebeard. He Vice Admiral looked awe-inspiring. Boom. Whitebeard's fist slammed forward, and the shock wave spread towards the sea, and the impacted sea immediately boiled. The seawater around naval headquarters accelerates and rises rapidly, raising a height of 1 to 20 meters at a speed visible to the naked eye. My god, this is a big tsunami? Whitebeard wants to flood the naval headquarters. The Marines were panicked, and the naval headquarters was surrounded by sea in all directions. F*K, it's so exciting to play as soon as you come up. Miller, who had just emerged from the sea, was very excited. If this tsunami rushed to him, would he be beaten? However, his illusions soon shattered. A figure flew into the air, his whole body was chilly, and the space around him was frozen. Ice Age. Aokiji shot 2 icicles with his left and right hands, and the moment he touched the tsunami, the seawater that was enough to push the naval headquarters immediately froze into a glacier. Aokiji, this stinky kid. Seeing this, Whitebeard frowned tightly, raising the long knife in his hand, covering it with a gas mask. Seemingly aware of Whitebeard's attacking intentions, Aokiji also looked at him sharply. However, before Whitebeard could do anything, a dazzling beam of light shone from above the sky. Aokiji raised his head slightly, and the majestic thunder and lightning condensed in the sky. Boom boom. After a loud and deafening noise, violent thunder and lightning fell from the sky, and Aokiji quickly got up and retreated. Rumble. A huge hole was suddenly blasted out where Aokiji was, and the ground was scorched black. After landing, the lightning spread madly, and everyone around was scorched. F*K. The ability to control lightning? Aokiji's lips trembled with lingering fears, and swallowed wildly. Including Whitebeard is also unbelievable. The power of this lightning is strong enough to pose a threat to Admiral. Let alone the strengths and weaknesses, the key is that he does not have a character who can control the thunder and lightning. The space behind Aokiji rippled slightly, and the circular portal opened. Fists braved of flames and magma came out of it. Dark Hound. A familiar trick came from behind, but an extremely strange voice. It was a Kainu's trick, but the attacker was not a Kainu. Boom. The brutal magma punches directly on Aokiji's body. This guy sprayed a big mouthful of old blood on the spot, and his body was blasted away in an instant. The banging sound kept ringing, and Aokiji smashed several bunkers one after another. This is the end of your nosy. Miller walked out of the space portal with a look of misfortune. This is the fruit of the door. The moment he saw him, the whole world fell silent. A dull color appeared on everyone's face. That is Sakazuki Admiral's lava fruit. Could it be that the Whitebeard just now was actually disguised by this guy? The replicator Miller has come to cheat, everyone pay attention. It's over, the three marshals Admiral and Sengoku attacked this guy. And Whitebeard, if it weren't for Aokiji Admiral's freezing of the tsunami just now, he probably has copied Whitebeard's abilities. After a long time, someone finally recovered. At this moment, everyone's doubts were relieved. Asshole. Sengoku roared for the first time, bloodshot spreading from his eyes. Before they knew it, they were duplicating their abilities in turns. It's no wonder that Sakazuki's magma attack just didn't work. It turned out that this guy came. Kizaru stood idly in the distance and smoked. When Saboti Archipelago fought, he witnessed Miller's horror with his own eyes. The body was corrupted, and this guy regenerated with a certain terrifying ability. In contrast, Akainu's magma is not worth mentioning. I was so happy that you just hit me, right, monkey? Kizaru suddenly raised his head. Miller had flashed above his head, and his old face suddenly twitched. He deliberately explained and shut up again. How did a Marine Admiral explain to the pirate? Say this is a misunderstanding. Don't forget, there are countless eyes looking at him. Besides, can this F***K blame him? Miller had become Whitebeard just now, and the ghost knew it was this guy. Kick at the speed of light. Miller retaliated with teeth, a beam of light kicked out of his feet, and Kizaru quickly kicked a beam of light to counterattack. Rumble. The beams collided and exploded, the flames began to roll, and the two men's tricks were cancelled out. At the same time, a biting cold wind passed by, and Kizaru noticed a lot of ice scum on his body. This is Kuzan's. Kaka. Before the voice fell, Kizaru froze into an ice sculpture in full view. Great eruption. With a smash of his fist, a giant fist made of magma leapt out. The frozen Kizaru's expression was messy, and a flaming golden light flowed from his body, like a flame, and the ice cubes began to melt. Tick. Tick tick tick. The ice cubes melted into droplets, dripping continuously. Kizaru cursed, this melting speed is too slow. Obviously, I just copied frozen fruit, and I didn't even have a minute. The ability and strength to manipulate ice is already not weaker than Aokiji. A gust of wind swept, and the stubborn body suddenly stood in front of Kizaru, his fist-covered armament hockey and blasted out. Boom. With a loud noise falling, the oncoming magma was all over the cracks, and it was intercepted alive. Garp Vice Admiral. The Marines exclaimed that this shot was the hero Garp. Rumble. The magma finally exploded and exploded. Old guy's armament hockey is really strong. Miller's eyeballs were turning trickly, and Garp was also an old monster in his 70s. It is rare to have such a powerful physical skill at this age. Miller didn't attack anymore, he calmly smoked his cigar, deliberately revealing the flaw. He wants to attack Garp and copy his hockey. Haha, you don't need to follow the old man in this set. Garp grinned after exploding the magma, put his fists away, and hugged him in front of him. He wouldn't be fooled. Miller, this war has nothing to do with you, get out of naval headquarters now. Sengoku hissed angrily. Miller sneered when he heard the words, and said with contempt, lousy come if you want, and if you don't agree with you, please, let me see who dares to come and try. Instead of fearing Sengoku, Miller roared even more fiercely. The surrounding marine soldiers all shrank their necks. Akainu was boiled with magma, and he wanted to throw a fist and finally gave up. This guy is too evil, and he doesn't want to take risks. Kizaru also said that Miller is not just a simple copy of Devil Fruit. The attack in the normal state is ignored, and the tricks after the awakening of the Flash Fruit are also copied. Not only Marine, but the Whitebeard pirates also looked at Miller with fear. Although this guy is an enemy of Marine, he will not help the Whitebeard pirates. Once an opportunity is found, Miller will replicate the ability. Father, what shall we do now? The captains of the Whitebeard pirate group came up to ask. This Whitebeard, who had always been decisive, was also a little helpless. He looked at Ace on the execution stage. Now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. 3 Admiral and Sengoku and Garp are all contained. There is no master at Ace right now. Marco, fly directly to save people. Whitebeard decided to take the risk once. When Marco heard the words, a blue fire appeared all over his body, and his arms stretched out like wings, turning into a blue phoenix and rushing to the sky. Excellent ability. Greed flashed in Miller's eyes, and Marco's ability was quite rare. Stop him. Sengoku shouted and ordered. Akainu looked up to the sky with a sneer on her face. Don't forget the freak Miller. What kind of thing are you, Marco? Akainu's lower body was elementalized, and the magma sent him to the sky like a fountain. Great eruption. Akainu fisted heavily, and the huge fist of magma flew out again. Oops. When Whitebeard saw this, his expression sank. With Marco's strength, he couldn't hold Akainu's attack. Even if he didn't die, this punch would make Marco crippled. Whitebeard immediately raised his fist and slammed into the sky, airshock. The entire sky was shaking, and the atmosphere was torn out densely interlaced cracks. Dark water. Miller looked at the timing, and his whole body burst into viscous darkness, and the overwhelming gravity swept out. He was like a human-shaped black hole, and even the battleship on the sea was pulled over. Whitebeard's shockwave was also forcibly pulled over, and turned to attack Miller. Is this stinky kid crazy? When Whitebeard saw this, he yelled. How could there be such a person? Lousy didn't want to hit you, but you used gravity to suck Lousy's attack and get beaten? Hey, wait. This is not dark fruit? Whitebeard suddenly thought of some damn traitor, killing him in awe. Boom boom boom. At the same time, Whitebeard's shock fell directly on Miller's body. His strength was so strong that he was shocked tens of meters away, and his body smashed into the walls of naval headquarters. Ha ha ha, under the ruins, Miller's cheerful voice came. Get it. Get it, the 3 marshals Admiral and Marine, as well as Whitebeard's abilities are all available. Miller's excited voice came from under the ruins, resounding throughout the naval headquarters. This made everyone's scalp numb. Just imagine, when a person has Marine Admiral and Marshal Sengoku, as well as Whitebeard's abilities, how powerful and terrifying is this person? Boom. Marco in the sky suffered a fatal blow, and the azure flames all over his body were broken up by Akainu, and he fell powerlessly. The whole body was scorched in a wide range. On the other side, under a large area of ruins, groups of magma suddenly flowed out, burning everything up. Miller stood up from the ground. Under his feet, lava flows past, which is the ability of Akainu lava fruit. Above his head, the atmosphere is full of cracks. This is the ability of Whitebeard's shock fruit. Around him, there is still cold air rolling, and even the magma on the ground can freeze. This is Aokiji's frozen fruit. A burst of sacred light spurted from Miller's body, and his whole body was wrapped in golden light. That's Marshal Sengoku's ability. My god, he really got it all. The world exclaimed. At this moment, Marin's many protagonists are no longer the Whitebeard pirates, nor are they Marine. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Miller. You guys don't worry, I'll just check it out. Miller's beating sound rang through everyone's ears. With him, who would dare to beat? No one wants to be copied by this guy, including Hockey. This guy stopped this war alone. The world has seen Miller's heaven-defying through the broadcast of the video phone worm. It was also because of him that Marine and the Whitebeard pirates did not dare to fight on a large scale, and no one could ignore his existence. Whitebeard was an example. They did not fight Miller, but the F*K attack was dragged over. This third party is too enchanting, and has reached the point where both sides must be scrupulous. Marshal Sengoku, what shall we do? Kizaru finally broke free of the ice at this time and fell to Sengoku's side. Wait first. Sengoku said helplessly, his help-seeking gaze turned to Vice Admiral, hoping that the other party would find a way. The latter also sighed with a helpless expression. Miller is like a hedgehog covered with spikes, whoever pierces him will make himself incomplete. Whitebeard's eyes were also staring, and more warships gathered on the sea, and the fleet of the Whitebeard pirate group and affiliated fleets all rushed to support. And Miller is like a gunpowder barrel sandwiched between the two. Father, we can't wait any longer. Time is good for Marine. When it's time, Ace will be executed. Diamond Joz, the captain of Whitebeard's 3rd Division, said worriedly. First send the bottom forces to land in Marin. Whitebeard resolutely said that ordinary crew members don't have devil fruit, and they don't have much power. Even if they are copied by Miller, it doesn't matter. All the pirates below Vice Admiral immediately take action to defeat the enemy. Sengoku also took up the phone worm command, the top combat power. Neither side has invested in it for the time being. However, even so, Miller is still in the water, and these low-level combat powers also have a lot of demon fruit power. For example, There is a captain named Shuan on Marine. He is a rusty fruit-capable person. After being caught by Miller, he successfully replicated his ability. The same is true for the Whitebeard pirate group. He is a fish in the water. Although they are all crew members at the bottom, very few crew members still carry the devil fruit ability. Mill. The copy of Damn It. Whitebeard and Sengoku were so angry that they watched the abilities of their subordinates or their sons have been copied. Time passed by every minute, and an hour passed in a blink of an eye. There are about 15 minutes left before Ace's execution. Whitebeard was calm on the surface, but secretly anxious. Once the time was up, Sengoku would definitely execute Ace in front of the whole world. Huh. At this moment, a burst of light flashed, and Miller suddenly landed next to Whitebeard. The other captains immediately came up with weapons. Yo, Whitebeard. Miller greeted with his slap. Boy, you're almost done copying, right now. Whitebeard roared fiercely. In this moment, Miller had replicated more than 10 abilities. The pirate and marine take it all, and it's speechless. There are still people who haven't copied it. Miller looked at Marco, Diamond JOZ, and of course Ace on the execution stage. He hasn't copied these 3 people yet. Old man, you have seen the power of marine, too. Miller pointed to Admiral and Sengoku, as well as Shichibukai, and said faintly, they dare not hammer me, but if they hammer you, one will be more fierce than the other. With the strength of your Whitebeard pirates, singles out such a luxurious lineup as court death. Your sons are all dead, and you can't save Ace Huaquan. Whitebeard's face is not very good looking. Even if this is the truth, he is extremely uncomfortable. Are you despising me and the Whitebeard pirates? Hearing this, Miller smiled faintly. Exactly. When this sentence fell, the atmosphere suddenly dropped to freezing point. Except for you. Miller passed by JOZ and others. Everyone who is doing it is spicy chicken. It's not useful. What did you say? The captains were furious, and each of them opened their eyes like tongaling. They are also the world-renowned Whitebeard pirates. How come Miller's mouth is scum? It's ridiculous. Whitebeard was silent. Looking at the marine lineup, Whitebeard knew that this battle was about to be explained here. Marine apparently executed Ace, but wasn't it actually aimed at him? After his death, to be honest, there were no reasonable successors, and Marco was not strong enough to compete with other 4 emperors and admiral. The territory of the Whitebeard pirates will be swallowed up. Go ahead. What do you want to do? Whitebeard asked directly. Give me your son's devil fruit. As a deal, I will assist you, Miller said slowly. He glanced at Ace. Actually, according to his original plan, he was here to replicate his abilities, leaving the rest alone. As for saving Ace, to be honest, he didn't like this kid at all. He didn't have the strength to go to Akainu and Blackbeard. Who can he blame for this kind of person's death? But looking at the current situation, there is no other way. Now F*K is no longer playing. If the war ceases, what opportunity does he have to replicate his capabilities? This damn bastard. On the marine side, it is the group Friar. There is no doubt that if Miller and the Whitebeard pirates team together, it will be an unprecedented pressure. Send my order and execute Ace immediately. Sengoku hissed in the direction of the execution table. The Whitebeard pirates group panicked when they heard the words. Looking around, the executioner on the execution platform had already raised his spear high and was about to stab Ace. Father, promise him. Diamond JOZ gritted his teeth suddenly. Our ability is important, but compared to Ace, it's nothing. Ha ha ha, silly big guy, I admire you very much. A person who knows the current affairs is a brilliant man. From now on, Whitebeard will rise to the sky with 2 feet. The Miller pirates will open the door for you at any time. Miller came up and patted Joe's ass, looking at him with your promising eyes. Go away, disgusting. Joe shook off Miller's big hand. Perhaps because of too much strength, Miller's mind suddenly rang out. Diamond fruit ability. See, here, an armament hockey carrier JOZ have been captured. Now we are copying, 1%. Miller, who heard the voice of the system, opened his mouth. This can be considered an attack. Lousy has to think about it. When Whitebeard heard this, it was extremely difficult. If he would abandon the others and make them sacrifice for the sake of Ace, it would be irresponsible to everyone, and he would not deserve to be a father. But he looked at the execution stand in despair. The executioner had already started. Lousy agreed. Whitebeard finally agreed, and it seemed useless to refuse. Because the capable members of the Whitebeard pirate group seem to have been brutally murdered. And analyze it based on the personality of a person like Miller. If he refuses, he won't copy it. Just like just now, Whitebeard obviously wanted to explode Akainu's magma, but this guy directly used the gravity of dark fruit to drag the attack over. He also successfully copied shock fruit, dark water. Miller's big hand expelled a majestic gravitational force, and the entire execution frame shook suddenly. The two executioners were caught off guard and fell straight down. Want to save people? The old man didn't agree. Hot lava flowed from Akainu's arm. Because of Miller, Marine's execution was messed up and most of his abilities were copied. If you still lose Ace right now, wouldn't Marine be a joke? Dark Hound. Akainu's magma fist slammed directly in the direction of the 19th execution platform. Miller snapped his fingers when he saw it. Boom. A green barrier was condensed in midair to intercept Akainu's attack. He increased the output of gravity, and Ace was pulled over like a migratory bird. Is this too simple? Everyone in the Whitebeard Pirates was speechless, and they all planned to fight a desperate fight with Marine. As a result, Miller took people over so easily? It seems too easy. Do it, you can't let them go anyway. Sengoku's angry hair stood up. Kizaru rushed directly to the sky when he heard the words. He threw tens of thousands of flashbombs between his hands, Bachi Chong Guyu. Light bulbs flooded down the sky, towards the Whitebeard Pirates on the water. The Whitebeard long knife covered the power of shock fruit, and the atmosphere exploded quickly. Whitebeard's long knife swept vigorously, and the shock wave that shook the fruit was released, and the entire sky was shaking and shaking. The light bullets were scattered by shock fruit's power before they fell. Ice Age. A cold air fell on the sea, and the endless sea quickly condensed into glaciers, and dozens of battleships of the Whitebeard Pirates were all frozen. Daddy, everyone. Ace looked at the few people close at hand, and bowed his head very ashamed. Sorry, it was me who caused the chaos for everyone. What are you talking about, my stupid son? Whitebeard rubbed Ace's hair fondly, and his dignified eyes showed infinite care. You are my son. No matter what mistakes you make, as a father, you will forgive you. What's more, I don't blame you for this matter. A fierce light flashed in Whitebeard's eyes, and his gaze flicked over Shichibukai. It's strange, why didn't you see the traitor Blackbeard? Huaquan Ace has been rescued, and now it's your turn to fulfill the agreement. Miller walked to Marco, and the guy was punched by Akainu. He was half dead, and he needed someone to stand up. Boom. Marco was also trustworthy and gave Miller a punch. The system immediately detected him and immediately began to copy. Come, line up, stand up for Lousy, one by one, who dares to run away, I will throw Ace back to Marine. After copying to Marco, Miller changed to someone else. In just 1 or 2 minutes, Miller searched several abilities, and the task was almost complete. Very individual, Miller doesn't care, anyway, there will be time to take it slowly in the future. This guy is getting trickier. Marine watched the pirates of the Whitebeard pirate group take turns being copied by Miller, secretly anxious. Continuing to let Miller grow so unscrupulously, he will inevitably become a confidant for surpassing the 4 emperors. HMPH, no matter how much his devil fruit has, he is just a trash. Akainu mocked, even if he had dozens of abilities, he didn't see how much he was out of in combat power. Isn't it a waste? Unfortunately, this sentence was heard by Miller. Even though he was 100 meters away, he could still hear it clearly by seeing and hearing. You are right, Akainu, my strength is indeed built on devil fruit. Miller didn't deny either. Looking at Blackbeard, people have 2 devil fruit abilities and become 4 emperors, and Miller, who has nearly dozens of devil fruit abilities, can't remember it clearly. In contrast, what is he not a waste? But if you think about it from another angle, Miller, an outsider, has traveled to this world and spent a few months to have the level of combat effectiveness of the Admiral 4 Emperors. Isn't this a miracle? The powerful strength of Akainu and others took decades of cultivation, including Blackbeard and Miller, who was eating, drinking and having fun all day long, had never practiced before, and he could not endure that kind of hardship and tiredness. In fact, this doesn't blame Miller. Since he can copy it all the way to the end, why should he cultivate like an ordinary person? It's too tired. All day long, except for picking up girls, it is the way to copy devil fruit. But as soon as the conversation turned, Miller began to fight back again. You and he have nothing to do with the trash. What are you? You Marine Admiral is a stinky shit, scum. Miller deliberately increased his voice, and used the sonic fruit to amplify his voice, and these words spread throughout Marin. You look down on people. Akainu heard that his face was green. He was the kind of person who valued his face, and he couldn't help being abused by Miller. Dark Hound. Akainu slammed his arm hard, and the magma flew out. The speed was surprisingly fast. Miller followed suit and attacked with his fist, Dark Hound. Boom. The magma fists of the 2 people collided in midair and exploded, and the heat waves struck in all directions. Do you think I didn't feel you? You don't admit it when you say that you were trash. Akainu suddenly turned his head and struck out with a heavy punch. The miller who came into view just flashed from the space portal. This is the fruit of the door. Boom. A heavy punch hit Miller, and Akainu's face burst into a cruel smile. Copy it, it's been copied anyway, he still cares about it. But just the next second, the smile on Akainu's face stiffened. A lot of darkness erupted from Miller's chest, like a bottomless pit, and all the magma condensed on his fist was absorbed. The unbelieving Akainu was energized, and the magma on his hand erupted again. Guru. With exactly the same result, the magma was swallowed up again. Some kind of swallow this too. Akainu exploded with a powerful burst of energy, and went straight to Miller over the thick darkness. Boom. A huge force bombarded Miller's body, and the darkness covering his body was shaken away. There was a trace of astonishment in Miller's eyes. The force penetrated into his body like a liquid, violently destroying the internal organs. In a very short time, the organs in his body were completely destroyed. It's done. Akainu laughed wildly. Through observation Hockey's perception, he couldn't feel Miller's heartbeat. Apparently the blow just exploded his body organs. Dark fruit can absorb devil fruit's attack, but it is pure armament Hockey. Armament Hockey, which is released outside, is called emission in Wano-kuni and other regions. After hitting Miller, he destroys the inside of Miller's body again, and the effect is like fighting a cow from a mountain. This is the top armament Hockey, which can wake up and strike the inside of the object. Miller stiffened for a moment, then suddenly raised his fist. This action made Akainu's pupils dumbfounded. F*K's body organs were blown up. Can he continue to fight? Wrong. There was another, puff puff puff, sound in my ears. Akainu observation Hockey swept towards Miller, his heartbeat returned. Body organs can be rebuilt in just a few seconds. Dark Hound. Miller didn't care what this guy was thinking, he just fisted, and the magma fist flew towards his forehead. Akainu, who was still in shock, forgot to defend for a while, and it wasn't until the heat of the magma fist penetrated that he swallowed him, and he shook his fist nervously. But snap it. A thunder and lightning came suddenly, and it struck Akainu with great accuracy. The paralysis spread all over the body, and the weakness surged to his heart. Akainu's fist had to be slumped down. Boom. The magma finally hit Akainu's cheek, and his entire head was swallowed. Ha-ah-ah. Painful screams resounded through the sky, and countless Marines looked back at Akainu. The iron-blooded Marine Admiral was lying on the ground in embarrassment, rolling over and over because of pain. Let me say it, you are not as good as trash. Miller sneered, and when he was about to step forward to continue to make up the knife, an ice shadow passed over his head. Ice Cube Storm Pheasant's mouth, boom. The ice giant bird hit Miller like a cannonball, and the cold air ran over his body, and his body quickly froze. In the blink of an eye, Miller turned into an ice sculpture again. The old man can't spare you. He got up from the ground and roared again and again. His left face was severely scorched, and his anger soared. One of the eyes can't even see clearly. The dog bites Gurren. The magma on Akainu's hand stretched for several meters, condensing into a dog's head, and biting the frozen Miller. Click. The ice cracked, a powerful airwave burst out, and the atmosphere also cracked. Akainu looked cold. Whitebeard's shock fruit? Boom. As soon as the voice fell, the shock wave spread to the magma-vicious dog, and his head exploded with a bang. Miller stepped out of the ice without a problem. His observation Hockey spread out and glanced at Aokiji, who was standing not far away. This guy was chilling all over, waiting for an opportunity like Lion Majesty. It's not fair to play 2-on-1. Miller rubbed his head, looking helpless. To be exact, it's 3-on-1. Kizaru's servant also landed in another place. Marine 3 Admiral dealt with one person at the same time. This was absolutely unprecedented. Some reporters quickly raised their cameras and kept taking pictures. Little ones, retreat. On the other side, after rescuing Ace, Whitebeard had no intention of continuing to fight. He raised his hands high at the same time, and a gas mask was condensed on both fists. Boom. After a loud noise, the ice scum flew all over the sky, and the several kilometers of sea frozen by Aokiji instantly recovered. Don't worry about Miller. I can't catch this guy anyway. I can't let Whitebeard run away. Although Sengoku wanted to smash Miller into pieces, Whitebeard was still focused at this time. This public execution plan, in the final analysis, is to disintegrate the Whitebeard pirate group. As for Miller, frankly speaking, even if the 3 Admiral besieged, Sengoku was not sure to keep Miller. He couldn't stop anyone who wanted to run away. Meatball fruit, thunder fruit, gate fruit, flash fruit, etc. are all weapons of escape. It is almost impossible to catch this guy alive. Although Marine also has a Kizaru, do you expect a Kizaru to win Miller? There is no way. Let's catch Whitebeard first. With Sengoku's command, Kizaru immediately flew to the sky, and the light from the sky descended again, Bachi Chong Guyu. Aokiji was also letting out the cold, intending to freeze the sea again. Only Akainu stared at Miller, like a beast, wishing to swallow him. Whitebeard stared at the sky, his long knife covered with a halo. At this critical moment, a black shadow suddenly rushed out of the crowd, holding a big knife in his hand, killing Whitebeard from behind. Pouch. A fierce knife pierced Whitebeard directly, through his chest, and Whitebeard was penetrated. Wow. Whitebeard, who was about to attack, vomited a big mouthful of blood on the spot, and because of the heavy damage, the gas mask on the long knife disappeared. Hey, it's still here. Miller watched this scene faintly, and unlike the shocked Marine and the pirates, he had known it a long time ago as a traverser. The person who did it was the Skuyard, and this filial piety sword directly killed Whitebeard's half-life. But what was his reason for attacking Whitebeard? Miller was surprised that the reason why Whitebeard in the original book was attacked by Skuyard was because he had listened to Akainu's slander and thought that there was some kind of agreement between Sengoku and Whitebeard that they would not kill Ace and the Whitebeard pirates. The pirates who replaced New World will all be wiped out. But right now, the war did not happen, and Akainu did not connect with Skuyard. This guy also attacked Whitebeard, which is puzzling. Father, you betrayed everyone. In order to save Ace, you actually asked your companion to give your ability to the replica Miller. I can't forgive it. Skudurd said the reason in tears, and Miller suddenly opened his mouth. The pan was tossed around, and finally F*K dumped himself? Father. Fool. What are you doing? Skuyard, you idiot, that's daddy. In this attack, the pirates of the Whitebeard pirate group were undoubtedly the most panicked. Whitebeard is the belief of the entire Whitebeard pirate group. If he falls, the Whitebeard pirates will not be far apart. Ha ha. At the same time, the sky full of golden light bombs landed, and the fleet of the Whitebeard pirate group was severely hit, and some people were punched with more than a dozen holes in their bodies. Ice Age. Aokiji also froze the sea again, and tens of thousands of Marines stepped on the ice to kill the frozen fleet. The funny thing is that Marine's carefully constructed fortifications have become a joke. Trash on the sea, you should do it too. Sengoku's gaze swept to Shichibukai. He didn't call these guys to watch the show. Hey, it's better if you ask others, bastard Sengoku. Doflamingo laughed and cursed. Boa Hancock glanced at Miller, who nodded, and she joined the battle group. Violent Kun Shang walked out blankly. Hawkeye also moved, and his eyes glanced at Miller, his face was cold. Look at F*K. What are you fierce? If Lousy couldn't copy swordsmanship, King made you understand how sinister society is. Miller cursed at the world's #1 swordsman unscrupulously. After this war is over, I will challenge you. There was cold light in Hawkeye's eyes. Hey, Miller sneered, he didn't bother to take care of the eagle eye. If you want to die, you are always welcome. Small pirate, don't be too smug. Akainu was approaching with lava flowing all over his body, both of his arms were covered with lava, and his ferocious eyes revealed a fierce force of death. Akainu's marine career for so many years, such a big loss like today, is the first time to eat. Sakazuki, give priority to solving the Whitebeard pirates, Sengoku shouted and commanded. Isn't this guy also a pirate? Let's send them to die together. Akainu refused to listen and raised his fist tenaciously. Can you beat him? Sengoku asked a heart-wrenching sentence, and Akainu's face twitched. Miller has too many fruiting abilities, and no one can say that he can beat him if he is singled out. We can't stop this guy when he wants to leave. If that's the case, why should we put our energy on him and wipe out the Whitebeard pirates for me? Suffocating the fire full of stomach, Sengoku vented his anger on the Whitebeard pirates. In fact, from the moment Miller appeared, Sengoku knew that Marine had nothing to do with him. Very far-sighted, Marshal Sengoku. Miller smiled without saying a word. His door fruit has already been coordinated in other parts of the world. As long as the situation is not right, he can go away immediately. In addition, there are bear fruit balls. Miller can also teleport to other islands. Even from here in Sabodi Archipelago, it only takes less than a second. It was impossible for Marine to catch or defeat Miller. One day, Lousy will kill you all. Miller's sulky gaze passed over all Shichibukai and Admiral. Not only can he copy abilities, he can also use dark fruit to transfer devil fruit abilities with the Blackbeard physique. Isn't it good to transfer shock fruit, lava fruit, frozen fruit and other abilities to your own person? In addition, Miller looked at the Moby Dick. I will start to charge interest now. Skuyard, you scumbag, scum, bastard. The captains of the Whitebeard pirate group surrounded Skuyard, and everyone stared at him with hatred. If the look in his eyes could kill someone, this guy has already been cut into a stick. Get out of the way. I have something to tell Skuyard, you hurry up and stop Marine. Whitebeard wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with great effort that many battleships have been climbed up by Marine, and the two sides started a fierce fight. Go back and collect you again. Diamond Joz glared at Skuyard fiercely, and immediately slammed a group of captains to support him. If we refuse to cooperate with Miller, we will only pay more serious casualties. Compared with the dead companions, it is nothing to give some devil fruit ability. My stupid son, is devil fruit more important than your brothers in your eyes? Whitebeard spoke very harshly, and even his eyes condensed a terrible cold light. However, if he perceives carefully, he did not release his own killing intent, but reprimanded him. In his eyes, Skuyard was a son who made a mistake, and as a father, he had to correct it. Except for Blackbeard, Whitebeard will never release murderous intent on his son because they are relatives. Father, if I hadn't lost to Teach Guy, it wouldn't be a drag on everyone. Ace shed tears ashamed. Hey. Don't cry, it's your turn. Give me Mara fruit and cry harder. Miller's voice suddenly sounded, and I don't know when it started, he was already standing on the Moby Dick. Hearing Miller's voice, Ace turned his head instantly, with a vague anger in his eyes. Miller suddenly felt innocent. He saved your kid. Even if he didn't say a word of thanks, he shouldn't look at him with such a look, right? During the time I was in Impel Down, I heard that you defeated Luffy's pirates? Ace squeezed his fist. Luffy was his most important brother. It turned out to be because of this. Miller was relieved and sneered with disdain. That trash has no money to fight for slaves with me, and he wants to rob someone. Isn't it right to be beaten? Don't you want to vent your anger for him? It's good not to kill him. Miller added again, and there were veins on Ace's forehead. Sure enough, he is a reckless man. Miller took Ace even more contemptuously. Look at this kid's clenched fist, it seems he is going to fight him. Is it still unclear how many caddies I have? I forgot what Blackbeard suffered so quickly? Miller was humiliated weirdly, and Ace released his fist on the spot. Even Blackbeard is not an opponent, not to mention this guy. When Alabasta, Miller crushed Blackbeard. Ace, this is a deal. Execute it according to his request. Whitebeard waved his hand, his words haggard. He looked up at the distant sky. He was already very old, and he had left many dark diseases after years of fighting. Now he was hit by Skuyard. His vitality is fading rapidly, and if Miller is offended at this time, without his protection, the Whitebeard pirates cannot compete with Miller. Under Whitebeard's persuasion, Miller finally succeeded in copying Ace's Mara fruit. Even if this kid is dissatisfied, he can't make any changes in the current situation. After it was done, Miller watched the game indifferently. His cooperation plan with the Whitebeard pirates also ended. The abilities of most people have been copied by him. Buzzing. The space next to Sengoku rippled open, and the circular, space portal opened. Miller used the power of our door-to-door fruit now beside Sengoku. He clenched his fists subconsciously, and after Miller came out, he didn't intend to attack. Tell the 5 elders of the world government that in the near future, I will visit Marie Joyce personally. If they want to deploy troops to catch me, they can start early. I will be caught off guard when the time comes. Miller's words were threatening. Are you challenging the authority of the world government? Sengoku's mind was refreshed. There were not many pirates who dared to fight against the world government like this. Miller is definitely the thornhead among the thornheads. You can understand that too. Miller glanced at Sengoku indifferently. Sengoku said nothing, and stared at Miller coldly. If an ordinary pirate said something like this, he would have already wiped it out. As for Miller's words, dare not move, really dare not move. And can't afford to move him, the price is too expensive to move him. Therefore, Sengoku did not respond at all, but looked at Miller faintly. Miller didn't continue to cause trouble. He looked at Whitebeard, and the 3 admirals surrounded him. This old guy was also beaten by the sword of filial piety, and he was afraid that he was going to explain it here today. Miller was waiting to collect his body. Once the old guy died in battle, Miller would take Whitebeard's body and transfer his shock fruit ability to his own body as quickly as possible. But speaking of it, who was shock fruit for? Miller was extremely entangled. Although he had a large number of men, the mob accounted for the vast majority. I dare to say that there are few who can really control shock fruit. And most of Miller's men have the ability. The only one who does not have the ability of devil fruit seems to be Nami. This woman is still a member of the Straw Hat crew, not to mention that she forcibly stayed, and it was not shock fruit that promised her at the beginning, but the golden fruit of Paramecia. Who made this woman love money so much? Bluebrew. The phone worm on Sengoku's body suddenly rang, his brows clenched, and when the war was fully launched, All he cared about was whether he could completely wipe out the Whitebeard pirates. He didn't care about other things, but the phone bug in his arms kept ringing, making him upset. After Sengoku answered, when he was about to yell at the other party, a disturbing voice came from the opposite side of the phone worm. Marshal Sengoku. Impel Down was breached. An extremely weak voice came from across the phone worm, giving people a dying feeling. Sengoku's anger turned into consternation and panic. If Impel Down was breached, the consequences would be disastrous. The world's most brutal prisoners were imprisoned there, who had committed heinous crimes in the past. Once escaped by these guys, the harm to the sea is absolutely fatal. Who did it? Sengoku stomped his feet with anger, and Miller on the side pricked his ears to hear it. Yes, it's Blackbeard. The weak voice on the other side responded. Impossible. Sengoku denied it for the first time, and shook his head again and again. Where is Magellan? At the level of Blackbeard, it is too difficult for him to defeat Magellan, especially in the closed environment of Impel Down. Magellan, who is a poisonous person, can T-match how weak is Marine Admiral. If it's Blackbeard, it's very likely. Miller touched his chin, remembering the situation that Alabasta had encountered before, and said lightly, Blackbeard has a soul hidden in his body. He claims to be Rox D. Zebek. Do you think I am a kid who knows nothing? Sengoku slammed after a daze. That guy was defeated by Garp and Roger several decades ago. It's free to tell you information. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Miller said indifferently. The guy Blackbeard's last name is actually not Marshall, his real name is Rox D. Teach, that guy is Rox's son. How did you know? Sengoku had cold sweat on his head, his fists clenched tightly. Decades ago, the power of Rox Pirate had almost dominated the New World. Many legendary pirates were members of Rox Pirate in their early years, such as Golden Lion, and Kaido, Ant, and Whitebeard in the existing 4 emperors. They were all members of Rox Pirate in the past. In Alabasta, the kid wanted to take away my abilities, but I was defeated. It was the soul in him that saved his life. Miller didn't hide it either. Blackbeard can be considered as a potential enemy, and it would be best if you use the power of Marine to eliminate Blackbeard. Why tell Marine that you want to kill someone with a knife? Sengoku was not stupid, and soon understood Miller's intentions. You are right. Miller spread his hands. In short, Blackbeard with Rox's soul is far more terrifying than you think. Although Magellan is also good, Magellan may not be enough to see with Rox's help. Damn, it's Rox. How long have they been dead, and have come out to cause trouble? Sengoku shook his arm angrily, feeling extremely depressed inside. If it is really something like Miller said, then Marine will focus on carrying Blackbeard in the future. To some extent, Rox is the public enemy of the world, and almost overthrew the world government decades ago. Dark Hound. On the other side, Akainu vented all the flames of anger towards someone Whitebeard. Boom. The magma exploded on Whitebeard's head, and the old guy's entire head burned. Daddy. Everyone in the Whitebeard pirate group was very angry. When Whitebeard was too old, he was given a sword of filial piety by Scarred. The reaction ability and offensive ability, including the ability to act, were greatly reduced. Waiting for the flame above Whitebeard's head to dissipate, the hearts of the pirates hurt even more. Only half of Whitebeard's head remained, and the other half's head was directly melted by magma. Whitebeard was hit hard, but Akainu didn't have a hint of joy on his face, and even whispered to himself at the corner of his mouth, when will Miller come like this? Don't worry, sooner or later I will do this to you. Miller curled his lips. He had been watching the battle between Akainu and Whitebeard. Akainu is Marine's highest combat power. Whitebeard, the world's strongest man, no matter how strong he used to be, he is already at the end of the battle at this moment. All thanks to Skyard's assists. I want to kill you. The furiously exploded Jose's body shrank into a ball, covered with a lot of diamonds, and then rolled over like a stone. When Akainu saw this, his eyes were cold, and when he was about to start, a figure was blocked in front of Joz. Ice Cube 2 Thorn Spears. 2 ice spears ejected from Aokiji's hand and flew towards Joz like a bow and arrow. When the diamond was so hard that it actually defended Aokiji's attack, but the powerful force of the ice spear pushed back Joz. And the moment he touched Joz, his surface quickly frozen, and the crystal clear diamond was covered by ice in the blink of an eye. Joz. When Marco saw this, regardless of the injury, his hands stretched out into wings, and the blue flames covered his whole body. He turned into an undead bird and flew out for support. Oh, who told you to ignore the old man? There was a playful voice in Marco's ear, and he swept his head back, and a golden light had already caught up. In a hurry, Marco turned quickly, and the light swept past him. Buzzing. Without waiting for Marco to take a breather, a large swath of light condensed above his head, and the uninvited guests caught up. Kick at the speed of light. Kizaru dropped a heavy foot and kicked directly towards Marco's head. Boom. The blue flames condensed on Marco's head dissipated, and he spouted a mouthful of blood, and fell to the ground unwillingly. The main combat effectiveness of the Whitebeard pirates is the top captain. Marco, Ace, Joz, and Foil Vista are the strongest. Marco was hit by Akainu before, but now he was hit by Kizaru. He really couldn't hold it anymore. Joz was directly frozen by Aokiji. Foil Vista was also entangled by Hakai Mahawk, and the other captains were also besieged by Shichibukai. Right now, the Whitebeard pirates were at an absolute disadvantage. In fact, the essence of this war is missing a vital figure: Monkey D. Luffy. This kid didn't know where he was photographed by Miller. He was missing from this war. Luffy in the original book released the prisoners of Impel Down and took a large number of prisoners to support him. For example, Ivankov and Jinbei of the Revolutionary Army, as well as Crocodile, but all this was changed by Miller. Crocodile died early in Alabasta. The Whitebeard pirate group was brutally suppressed. Fire punch. Ace waved his fist, and a huge flame hit Akainu away. The latter was full of disdain. He didn't even have to defend against this kind of attack. Rumble. Flames swept from Akainu, and the blazing heat melted the ground. However, Akainu seemed to be okay, and walked by in the flames, and the fire burned on him. The strange thing was that Akainu could not be burned at all. "You are too weak." Akainu walked out of the burning flame, his eyes stern and sneered. "This is a duel between adults, and the kid is going to hide behind the old guy, understand?" Hearing that, Ace was extremely annoyed, and raised his big hands high, endless flames gushing out. Cough cough cough. "Get out, Ace." Whitebeard's broken body stood up stubbornly again, even without half of his cheek. His eyes were still sharp. Although Akainu's remarks are a bit harsh, they are also a true fact. The current Ace wants to contend that Akainu is too far behind. Whitebeard's long knife was raised high, covered with a gas hood, and the atmosphere shattered. Whitebeard's long knife held high and slashed hard. Lousy is Whitebeard, Magma Kid. Boom. The gas shield condensed on the long knife turned into a violent impact eruption, and the space in front of Whitebeard was suddenly shattered by the shock. On the sea, almost no one dared to compete with Whitebeard. But now someone has stepped forward. Akainu's face was firm, and Miller's accumulated anger had just found a suitable vent. He was entangled with magma on his right arm, and then slammed hard. Dark Hound. Boom. The two big moves collided together, and the terrifying impact that emanated caused the entire Marlin to tremble, and the earth was torn out countless cracks. The driving force even destroyed the naval headquarters building. Damn Whitebeard, he's so old, his strength is as exaggerated as ever. Sengoku opened his mouth and cursed, knowing that the Whitebeard in front of him had been weakened, and even so, the fighting power that broke out was still amazing. Because of the relationship between the two of them, half of the sky in naval headquarters turned red and half turned bright blue. "You also ignored the old man, Whitebeard." Kizaru's long voice rang from behind Whitebeard, and there was Aokiji standing next to him. Kick at the speed of light. Kizaru kicked out in the air, and the light hit Whitebeard. Ace hurriedly threw out the flame fist, fire fist. Boom. After the flame and the speed of light collided, they exploded and cancelled out together. At this time, no one came up to defend Aokiji. With Ace's strength, it would be good to be able to target a Marine Admiral. Aokiji flashed to Whitebeard's side in an instant, and the ice skate in his hand snorted and pierced Whitebeard's back. Kaka kaka. After the ice skate pierced Whitebeard's body, the old guy's cheeks immediately appeared painful, and his body began to freeze again. Even the internal organs began to freeze. Upon seeing this, Akainu knew that the opportunity had come. He strode several meters away and flew in front of Whitebeard in an instant. Sandbag-like iron fists wrapped around magma, punched out. "Daddy." The members of the Whitebeard pirates were desperate when they saw this scene. These two treacherous guys were strangling their belief in the Whitebeard pirates. Isn't it rumored that Aokiji and Akainu are at odds? This F***K. Dark Hound. Boom. The hot lava hit Whitebeard again, and his chest was immediately burned through, and the magma poured into Whitebeard's chest like a liquid. The internal organs were all burnt in an instant. "It looks like it's over, Whitebeard." Miller shook his head, first hit his head with a punch, and then was penetrated by Aokiji from behind. Now Akainu has burned his internal organs. After suffering from these kinds of injuries, it is difficult for the gods to save. Wow. Whitebeard Yang Tien let out a roar of unwillingness, his eyes widened, and the monstrous arrogance raged out of him. Even though he knew he couldn't hold it anymore and was about to live, he still couldn't fall down at this time. If he is defeated, the Whitebeard pirates will be wiped out by Marine. In any case, Whitebeard must hold on. Damn it. Whitebeard's knife fell to the ground, and Akainu sneered when he saw it. Maybe it was because he was hit hard and couldn't even hold his weapon, right? But just as Akainu slackened, Whitebeard's drooping hand suddenly moved, and grabbed Akainu like lion majesty. Recovered. Akainu immediately fought back, big spray, bang. Before the magma was released, Whitebeard blasted Akainu with a punch. Click. The atmosphere around him cracked again, and the shockwave dispersed in all directions with him as the center. Boom. Aokiji behind him was also lifted off, leaving the ice skates in Whitebeard's body. Obviously all the internal organs have collapsed, and Whitebeard has also exploded with an unimaginable fighting power. He ran out at a speed like the wind, and at this moment seemed to have returned to his youth. Damn Whitebeard. Akainu, who was lying on the ground, got up in embarrassment, but as soon as he looked up, the black shadow covered his body. Akainu looked up, her pupils shrank suddenly. Isn't it who is Whitebeard? Boom. Whitebeard just dropped a fist and hit Akainu's head accurately. He sprayed a mouthful of blood on the spot, and screamed. The ground couldn't even withstand the shockwave that erupted and was torn to pieces on the spot. Akainu fell into the abyss. Huh. Whitebeard was panting after doing all this. He looked at the broken naval headquarters, and the shocking voice rang through everyone's heart. Little ones, this is my last captain's order. The whole army retreats. Everyone must return to New World safely, and we must live well, my dear sons. Whitebeard's loud voice resounded deep in everyone's heart. Father, don't say such unlucky things, let's go back together. I absolutely don't allow this to happen. If you want to die, everyone will die together. Without Daddy, what's the point of going back alive? We can definitely beat Marine. The pirates of the Whitebeard pirate group burst into tears, crying. Ace looked at Whitebeard's ruined body with great regret. I am a remnant party in the old world. There is no ship to carry me in the new era. It would be nice to say goodbye here today. On the contrary, Whitebeard smiled in relief. He looked at the blue sky. The sun was very soft, and the wind passed gently. He had no regrets on the road on such a day. Boom. Near the many ports in Marin, a warship suddenly hit the shore, and a group of bandits in prison uniforms jumped down. Blackbeard, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, is here. The evil king, Schwanmoon Hunter Katrina Deepung, Big Wine Bask Chote, and Rain Shiryu. When Marine saw the crew brought by Blackbeard, they exclaimed one by one. Without exception, all are the repeat offenders of Impel Down. This bastard. Sengoku was immediately dizzy when he saw this scene, and all the murderous criminals on the 6th floor of Impel Down were released. Teach. Whitebeard also noticed the arrival of Blackbeard. His enemies were extremely jealous when they met, and the body that had been riddled with holes showed strength again. Whitebeard dragged his battered body towards Blackbeard. He wants to end this heinous bastard by himself. Huh? Daddy, I'm here to give you the end, are you happy? After seeing Whitebeard, Blackbeard smiled triumphantly. But. Huh. A flash of light struck from a distance and fell straight in front of Blackbeard. Blackbeard's smiling face suddenly disappeared. Duplicator Miller. Blackbeard's eyes shot a cold, cold light, and his eyes were full of monstrous killing intent. What do you stare at? Be careful that Lousy's eyeballs will be pulled off for you, and you are defeated. Miller was full of contempt, did not put Blackbeard in his eyes at all, and glanced over Shiryu and others. You guys, are you interested in messing with me? I can give you everything you want. Ignoring Blackbeard's existence completely, Miller openly digs into the wall. These Impel Down felons all have good combat effectiveness. Miller took a few more gazes at Shiryu of Rain, and he could feel the powerful aura from this guy. This is a companion recruited by Lousy. How could it be possible to take refuge in you? Blackbeard sneered. Miller didn't care about Blackbeard, and looked at Shiryu of Rain with special attention. Follow me, it's more promising than Blackbeard. How about Shiryu? Miller whispered secretly in his heart, and the voice using the sonic fruit blessing resounded in Shiryu's heart. Rain Shiryu glanced at Miller in surprise. In fact, he didn't have much demand for joining a pirate group, but Blackbeard rescued him. I can give you unexpected help, for example. Miller's voice resounded in Shiryu's heart again, and Shiryu's eyes flickered. Sorry, we already have Captain Teach, although you are pretty good. Katarina refused, and the others were not interested. Hear you, you idiot. Blackbeard sneered and pointed to Miller and ordered, go Shiryu, this guy can't copy swordsmanship, hack him to death for me. Clang. Apart from anything else, the thunderstorm in Shiryu's hand grabbed its sheath, and he disappeared with a sigh. Blackbeard immediately felt the murderous intent behind him. Sorry, Captain Teach. Rain Shiryu's long sword covered the evil spirit and armament hockey, and slashed at Blackbeard fiercely. Miller's offer was too generous, and he couldn't refuse it. Pouch. The fierce heavy knife slashed Blackbeard's body, and his skin was splintered, and a wound nearly half a meter long was cut alive. Blood splashed out, Shiryu's face was covered. Wow. Blackbeard screamed in pain, and the darkness quickly condensed on his hand, and turned his head back with an angry punch. It's a pity that Shiryu has avoided it in advance. Blackbeard threw a punch into the air, hammering a hole out of the ground. Shiryu. Do you dare to betray Laozi? The members of the Blackbeard pirates were unbelievable, and the most popular among them was Blackbeard. I rescued this guy himself, and now he is attacking him unexpectedly? No way, the temptation is too big. Rain Shiryu wiped the blood on the long knife, turned to look at Miller and asked, You probably didn't lie to me. Of course. Miller nodded affirmatively. Hear it, this guy has too much bargaining chips. I compared it all together, and it's more cost-effective to follow him. Shiryu said calmly. Laozi has promised. I will find you the transparent fruit you like in the future. Blackbeard gritted his teeth angrily, the flesh on his face shook. I'm asking myself if you treat you thinly. The bargaining chip is shock fruit. It's you. Can you stand the temptation? Shiryu confided the truth, and everyone was shocked by the words. Including Blackbeard also looked at Miller with an incredible expression. That's right, after waiting for the death of Whitebeard, Miller intends to transfer shock fruit to Shiryu of Rain. He also considered other people, but he has devil fruit under his team. If shock fruit is given to some miscellaneous soldiers, it would be a waste of this powerful fruit. If it were you, would you agree to it like I did? That is the strongest paramecia. What kind of transparent fruit compares with him is rubbish. Yuji Shiryu's face was greedy. Did you have water in your head? Blackbeard looked at Miller and shouted. What kind of scum does this guy think shock fruit is? Just send it out. The key F*K is the first time I met Shiryu. Laozi likes it, are you not convinced? Fool. Miller sneered. He had copied shock fruit anyway, and the rest didn't matter. Just don't fall into Blackbeard's hands. To say that this guy is also very poor, thinking about taking Miller's ability before, was beaten up in the end. If it hadn't been for Daddy Rox's debut, it was estimated that his life would be lost. Later, I took the second place and wanted to compete for shock fruit. As a result, I was going to be cut off by Shiryu of Rain. One can imagine how frustrated Blackbeard was at the moment. What do they think of Dad? A commodity. Blackbeard is not the only one who is angry, but the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates are also full of anger. Their respected father is still alive, and these two guys have begun to divide the legacy. Teach. Whitebeard came up with a long knife. He wasn't interested in the belonging of shock fruit. He was dead at that time anyway? The top priority, he just wanted to get rid of the culprit Blackbeard as soon as possible. Ah, father welcomes you to die. Seeing Whitebeard coming up, Blackbeard smiled suddenly. I am disrespectful of your ability. Boom. Whitebeard was not interested in pressing, and released a super shockwave on the spot. Blackbeard's rough palm stood up, and darkness erupted from his palm. Dark water. Blackbeard took the initiative to suck in the shock. His hand was like a deep sea spring, enough to swallow all the sun in the world. Under the gaze of countless people, Blackbeard finally successfully swallowed Whitebeard's shockwave. The violent shockwave was like gurgling water, softly and out of place, all flowed into the darkness. No wonder you take risks for this ability. Whitebeard was relieved. The ability to swallow even shock fruit was indeed excellent. Jihahaha. Now you know how good I am, Daddy. Blackbeard laughed wildly, his eyes flashing green when he looked at Whitebeard. Shock fruit. He is about to make a decision. Whitebeard came to kill with a knife, traversing the sea for many years, but he did not completely rely on shock fruit's ability. On Miller's side, he also focused on Katrina Depon, a newcomer with ability. Zone dog fruit, fantasy animal species, 9 tails fox form. Kill. It's the enemy anyway. Kill all Blackbeard's crew and make him a polished commander again. Miller moved his hand. With his big hand at the sky, thunder and lightning raged. The void dropped several beams of light, which fell on the members of the Blackbeard pirate group. Daju, Xuanyue Hunter, Rafit, Evil King and others were all irradiated by thunder and lightning. The thunder and lightning had not yet fallen, and their skins had smoked. 100 million volts. Miller's big hand suddenly waved downwards, lightning fell from the sky, and the faces of the Evil King and others showed fear, and they escaped from the lock of the lightning beam at the fastest speed. The rest of the people can still escape. The huge battleship, Sanwan Hungry Wolf, is obviously not working anymore. His huge body moves slowly, wherever he can keep up with the speed of lightning. Boom. The thunder and lightning that descended from the sky was like an unsheathed peerless divine sword. The lightning fell vertically, and the hungry wolf's head was blasted out of a blood hole. A pile of disgusting liquid spilled from the sky, and died suddenly on the spot. Rumble. Although the others escaped the capture of the thunder and lightning, the explosion caused by the lightning landing successfully affected them. The screams joined together. Is this the strength of that replicator's extinction? It's too ridiculous. The prisoners in eternal hell were killed all at once? All the people on Marlin kept this scene in view. After the head of the hungry wolf was penetrated, the corpse fell toward the sea with a bang, and the water was tens of meters high, like a mountain fell into the sea. Inside. Shangwan Wolf is a giant race, height meters, is one of the legendary criminals imprisoned on the 6th floor of Impel Down, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Because his crime was too cruel, and even must be erased from history, he was immediately killed by Miller with a single move. Crazy. Bulge. Miller flickered all over his body and disappeared in an instant. This guy. No wonder Captain Teach loses to this kind of person. Catalina Deepung, who was knocked to the ground by thunder and lightning, stopped breathing. Looking at the corpse of the hungry wolf, her heart was strongly stimulated. The blood stained the sea, and some sea kings were attracted over, biting the hungry wolf's carcass with their blood basins open. Snap it. There was thunder and lightning behind. Katrina Deepung felt cold. This is being watched. Her whole body radiated blazing light instantly, and the circular light cocoon surrounded her like a protective shield. It was Miller who had to close his eyes too dazzling. Hey, is it useful? He unfolded observation hockey with all his strength, and with a flick of his finger, he accurately released the lightning in his hand, 60 million volts Thunder Dragon. The Thunder Dragon swallowed the entire ball of light, and the crackling lightning resembled a knife blade. Many criss-cross cracks were torn out on the surface of the ball of light, and the lightning penetrated into it. Boom. As a loud noise fell, Katrina Deepung's shell burst on the spot, and Miller also looked at the woman quietly. But Catalina Deepung disappeared, and a huge nine-tails fox came into view. The nine-tails fox had cold eyes, flicked its body, and its 9 tails flicked out. Boom. Miller's chest trembled, and the huge power gathered by his tail directly blasted Miller back, and after a few staggers, he fell directly to the ground. Even though he had been knocked into the air, Miller's lips were still smiling. Huh. Nine-tails' fox-shaped Catalina Deepung is very proud. Isn't this a win? Katerina, you idiot. Noting the situation here, Blackbeard almost vomited blood. That's how he warmed Miller. He forgot how he reminded him before. Teach. Are you jealous that I beat him back? Catalina Deepung asked playfully. What a narrow-minded man. Yeah. I don't think there are any fools on the sea who don't know my abilities. Miller got up. He wiped the dust off his body, and then a white light flashed behind him. The smile on Catalina Deepung's face suddenly disappeared. Isn't this her ability? Then, under her incredible gaze, a few hairy tails flicked out of Miller's back. 1, 2, 3.8, 9, also 9 tails. Catalina Deepung's voice has a sharp, she can be 100% sure that this is her ability. But why did F*K touch this guy to become Miller? I'm stupid in Impel Down, Teach said just now, don't attack this guy rashly. Yuji Shiryu took the opportunity to ridicule, and his heart was shocked by the words. Just touch it to copy the ability, which is a bit pervert, right? Huh. On the side of Miller's body, the 9 tails behind him shot out like a spear. Catalina Deepung did not dare to contend head-on, her legs hurriedly backed away. Dark water. Darkness filled Miller's hand, and gravity exploded, and there was a flash of panic in Catalina Deepung's eyes. She couldn't control her body anymore and flew towards Miller. Captain Teach's ability. The crew of Blackbeard were all dumbfounded. At this moment, they regretted a bit. They knew Miller was such a wicked evildoer. Why were they beaten up with Blackbeard? Puff. 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 Catalina Deepung hit her sharp tail, and her head, heart, and body limbs were all pierced by the tail. 9 bloody blood holes appeared on Katerina Deepung's body, which were extremely permeating. Just like this. All over the world, people who have seen this scene through video phone worms, especially those with abilities, are afraid. This almost invincible, powerful force that crushes everything makes them think of the existence at the top of the pirate pyramid 4 emperors. Only the 4 emperors of New World have this overwhelming power. In the past, Miller was just a comparison with 4 emperors, but after all, the name of the Emperor of the Sea has not yet been realized. Now, with the explosive performance of the war, the name of the 5th Emperor of the Sea is worthy of the name. It's this guy. I will never forgive him. An island called Most on the Grand Line is extremely prosperous and people live and work in peace and contentment away from the harassment of pirates. Lu Fei fell here after being photographed by Miller. What is not known is that this island is actually the secret base of the Revolutionary Army. Baldigo, the old nest of the Revolutionary Army, White Earth Island, is not far from here. Luffy also met his father, whom he had never met before. After coming here, Luffy asked to return to Sabaody Archipelago to save people, but was stopped by Monkey D. Dragon because he thought Luffy was too weak. Just like him, let alone saving people, maybe even he would lose it. In order to prevent Luffy from doing stupid things, the dragon imprisoned Luffy here and practiced Luffy himself. The strength of this kid is also improving rapidly. You are too far away from defeating him now, work hard, Luffy. In a secret bunker, the father and son sat together, watching the war on the top through the screen. After seeing Miller, Luffy was jealous and raised his fist angrily. Wait for me. Luffy gritted his teeth. The only thing that made him relieved was that Ace seemed to be rescued. A big rock hanging in his heart also fell, and now he can practice with peace of mind. Long stared at Miller of Dafa Kamui, but his thoughts were completely different from Luffy's. Miller is the mortal enemy of the world government. He killed 2 celestial dragons and harvested the female celestial dragons into slaves. This crazy guy made the world boil. Since then, Miller has been a thorn in the eyes of the world government. The purpose of the Revolutionary Army is also to overthrow the world government. In this case, can the two sides cooperate? Regardless of whether it succeeds or not, at least Long has this idea. He thinks he can give it a try. Even if it fails, there will be no loss to the Revolutionary Army. As for the grievances between Luffy and Miller, Long did not care at all. In the face of the interests of the world, any personal grievances would have to stand aside. And he had ordered someone to contact Miller privately. If the duplicator joins us, I am sure to defeat the world government in 10 years or even 5 years. Miller's abilities are so outstanding, the Revolutionary Army needs such a strong partner. The melee at Naval Headquarters is still going on, and the 4 forces such as Marine, Whitebeard, Blackbeard, Miller and so on are fighting each other and fighting in full swing. There are only half of the original area left by Marlin, and the other part has been sunk. Smelly old man, it's all like this, hurry up and die, what time are you wasting here? Wow. It hurts lousy. Father, are you going to kill me? But your son. Blackbeard was pushed to the ground by the crippled Whitebeard, his big ears slapped back and forth, his left and right faces were swollen like pigheads. Blackbeard is simply a shame among the 4 emperors, who was called father by Baihu Z Hammer. Whitebeard's face was cold, and his big hand pressed Blackbeard's mouth, suppressing it to the ground. No matter how hard he struggles, Whitebeard's body is like cast steel, motionless. A dirty man like you is not qualified to live in the world, go to die, teach. Whitebeard's fist emerged with a circular gas mask, which was directly inserted into Blackbeard's mouth. Boom. The shock wave exploded in Blackbeard's mouth, broken meat and a few broken teeth flew out, his mouth was also torn apart, and there was a large area of bleeding in his mouth. It hurts, it hurts. Blackbeard lay on the ground and rolled over and over. Although dark fruit was strong and invincible, it also had a fatal weakness, double pain. For this reason, Blackbeard is more sensitive to pain than anyone else. Die. Whitebeard's counterattack did not stop. The long knife in his hand slashed towards Blackbeard, who quickly rolled away. Little ones, hurry up and help Lousy get rid of this dead old man. Blackbeard, who had rolled aside, began to ask for help from his partner. He looked over subconsciously, and his face suddenly looked like purple sauce. The evil king, Buffett, and Daju are all in embarrassment. The evil king broke his left leg. Buffett lost his right hand. Daju is slightly stronger than these two, with healthy limbs, but a hole in his stomach. An army of 100,000 grass and mud horses in Blackbeard's heart flew past, and the boys couldn't protect themselves. How could they have the energy to support him? I'm not playing anymore. Rafit's mentality collapsed first. Alabasta was beaten violently, and now it is the same. With black wings stretched out behind him, Rafit fluttered his wings lightly and flew towards the distant sky. Miller saw the magma jet on his right arm and gave a strong bang, Dark Hound. The flames of magma fist flew into the sky, and Akainu's eyes twitched when he saw this scene. Boom. There was a burst of explosion in the sky. Rafit disappeared without a trace, only some human remains were spilled on the ocean. The evil king and Daju looked at each other, and the two of them gave up their dignity by coincidence. Finally ran out alive, can't you be killed before you breathe? Puff. The two gave up their dignity and finally knelt before Miller. Master Miller, we used to have eyesight before and followed Teach. Now I hope you can forgive us and we are willing to be your subordinates. The legendary pirate, the evil king, also put down his dignity and slammed his head to the ground. The drunk wine also followed suit, and the two of them kowtowed their heads and apologized. Miller shook his head and glanced at Shiryu. This guy flashed behind them with comprehension. The long knife held high and slashed hard. Pouch. As if cutting a melon, the head of the wine was separated from the corpse, and the blood even rushed into the mouth of the evil king. Unexpectedly, kill them all. The villainous king was angry. He was also a famous pirate in history. They all knelt down and begged for mercy. Is this guy so cold-blooded? I'm fighting with you. The evil king rushed forward, covering armament hockey with his big hands and spinning like an electric drill. Once he was close, that big hand was quite lethal. 20 rounds of flowers. Miller snapped his fingers with a slap, and his arms came out from the ground, grabbing the feet of the evil king. When Shiryu saw this, he slashed with a knife. Damn it. Sparks flew, the tip of the knife stayed in front of him, and the evil king's electric drill fought Shiryu with a big hand. His head slammed forward, and the horns pierced from his forehead like a spear. Shiryu stepped on tiptoe when he saw this, his body retreated abruptly, easily avoiding the sharp object. Immediately afterwards, he speeded up suddenly, rushed forward, and fell in front of the evil king. Pouch. Shiryu slashed, and the horns on the head of the evil king was cut off on the spot. On the cheek, there was also a shocking scar along the way. You angered lousy. The evil king was furious and smashed Shiryu's cheek with his big hand, and his long sword quickly retracted his defense. Boom. The rough hand hit the thunderstorm, and the powerful force from it shook Shiryu back a little, and his arms were a little numb. It's worthy of the evil party on the 6th floor of Impel Down. Kill. The desperate king roared, his body exploded with great power, and the arms that restrained him underground were all forcibly torn off. This guy looked like a mad cow, turning his head and rushing towards Miller. I just saw you kowtow. I want you to live a little longer. Who knows, you are so uninteresting. When Miller saw this, he didn't leave his hand anymore, and his arm flicked forward, and the atmosphere shattered. The shock wave visible to the naked eye burst out from the cracks in the fist, and the surrounding atmosphere was all shattered. This is Whitebeard's shock fruit. The Marines noticed that there were many marlins and the sky was shaking again. Blackbeard, who was being slammed by Whitebeard on the side, was also envious and jealous. This guy had copied all his rare abilities, and his second devil fruit looked like a distant future. Boom. The evil king also slammed his fist into the shockwave, but the steel bracer he wore on his arm was crushed at the moment of contact, and separated like wind and sand. The shock swallowed the evil king, and every bone in his body was cruelly crushed. There is a flaw. Shiryu looked at the opportunity and immediately launched a sneak attack, stabbing out with a long knife in his hand covering the armed color. Pouch. The white knife went in and the red knife came out. Shiryu easily pierced the evil king. For fear that this guy would not die, the thunderstorm was still spinning away. The internal organs and other important organs were all crushed by him. When the long knife was withdrawn, blood flowed out together with the minced meat. Puff. The evil king eventually fell to the ground, with no life left. Since the members of the Blackbeard pirates, except for Blackbeard himself who is still alive, the rest have been killed. Do you need help? After solving the evil king, Miller walked up to Whitebeard and fought in a row. The old guy was too tired and lay on the ground and gasped. He doesn't even have the strength to move now. Lousy hasn't fallen to the point where someone else will avenge me. Whitebeard straightened his chest, a pair of tiger eyes exuding the cold light of ultimate. The eyelids of Blackbeard who were being stared at were jumping wildly, and a wave of anxiety filled him. Half of his cheek was destroyed. A hole was opened in his body, and his internal organs were all burned out. How could this old guy's strength continue to fight? Whitebeard continued to stride forward, and Blackbeard retreated instinctively. However, in the end Whitebeard stopped after 2 steps. There was a lot of helplessness on his face. Opportunity is here. Blackbeard was overjoyed when he saw it, like a beast that hadn't eaten for a long time, and rushed over. Desert Storm. Miller waved his hand, and the spinning sandstorm rose to the ground, controlling Blackbeard like an enchantment. Miller. Lousy doesn't share the same spirit with you. The restrained Blackbeard let out a hysterical growl. Dark. Blackbeard released dark fruit's gravity in a large area, like an abyss behemoth, and began to devour sand in a large area. But the sandstorm is like endless. No matter what, it can't be absorbed. Anxious Blackbeard covered armament hockey and ran out. Puff. 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 Thousands of grains of sand are like knives. Just touch it, and there are countless cuts on Blackbeard's body. Armament hockey seems to be unable to guard against the sand. Damn it, stop me, that's Lousy's predetermined ability, you can't do this to me. Blackbeard roared madly, and Whitebeard had already closed his eyes. The great Poseidon of the old age, in the end, did not escape the fate of the pirate died in battle. But looking at it, even if he was dead, Whitebeard was still standing. His brilliant life is admirable. The world has said that Whitebeard is not interested in the legendary One Piece, and his family is everything to him. If not, he would be the second one after Roger's death. Father. The pirates of the Whitebeard pirate group were crying on their backs, kneeling helplessly one by one. Everyone is dead and life is going to pass. Someone want to join Uncle Miller's pirate group? As soon as the man left, Miller began to snatch Whitebeard's son. Crew members like Marco and Joz have great strength. No one likes you. Fire Fist Ace stubbornly said with hatred, as if Miller had killed Whitebeard. Idiot stuff. Miller sneered, he was too lazy to take care of the mental retardation, and immediately beckoned to Shiryu. Shiryu naturally understood what this meant, and trod over quickly, and yelled respectfully, "Thank you, Mr. Miller. Even Shock Fruit is willing to give his own boss, this is the best captain. At this moment, I don't know how many people envy Shiryu." Snapped. Miller snapped his fingers, and a black cloth wrapped Shiryu and Whitebeard. Seeing this, Akainu strode forward and was covered in magma. "What do you want to do, Sakazuki?" Sengoku asked. "Whitebeard has fallen, and there are other evil parties that need to be eliminated." Although Akainu didn't elaborate on who it was, isn't it Miller who is the biggest pirate in Marin at the moment? At present, he has offered a reward of 3 billion. After this war, it may be 3.5 billion, or even 4 billion. Miller once staged the famous scene of 1 versus 2 and even 1 versus 3 Admiral. Don't find it uncomfortable anymore. Sengoku constrained Akainu, if you don't find a suitable means to deal with this guy, it's forbidden to shoot him. This is a rule. Akainu was unhappy when he heard the words, when did such a rule come out? Just came out. Sengoku said blankly, considering Miller's danger, Sengoku didn't want to trouble Miller. A man with Marine Admiral and his own abilities, including Whitebeard, and various other devil fruit abilities, you can hardly imagine how terrible he is fighting with all his strength. Sengoku was really not sure about taking Miller. Moreover, in the battle with the Whitebeard pirates, the Marine Admiral 3 were injured, and the broken naval headquarters, they were about to sink if they continued to fight. And Akainu, who was hammered into the ground with a fist by Whitebeard, and almost fell into the sea. Rather than finding Miller troublesome, it's better to take the opportunity to wipe out the Whitebeard pirates, and it's a curse to release the tiger back to the mountain. Sengoku said with a cold face that the 4 emperors are huge forces. Even if the captain dies, they still have a lot of troops. If they don't take the opportunity to solve them, they will have no chance. No one can take Shock Fruit. A strong dark atmosphere suddenly erupted inside the desert tornado. A thick dark mist that permeated people came out, and the sand began to decay. Boom boom. A huge dark sphere suddenly condensed inside the sandstorm, which was lifted above the head by Blackbeard, filled with the gravitational force that destroys the world like a black hole. Go to hell. Blackbeard panted and threw the black ball. Miller followed suit, and the darkness erupted on his hand, also condensing a large-scale dark sphere, and threw it vigorously. The duel between the 2 dark fruit abilities is particularly weird. Such a battle has never happened before. Boom. The 2 black balls collided, not giving way to each other, squeezing each other. Blackbeard took the opportunity to rush over, clenching his fists, and smashing into the dark scene with all his strength. Shiryu, you damn traitor, Shock Fruit is mine. Rumble. Blackbeard slammed into the dark, but there was no sign of damage. On the periphery of the shady screen, there was also an emerald-colored barrier protecting it. Take a look at Barrier Fruit. Miller looked at Blackbeard pity, and at the same time, cracks appeared on the dark screen. This movement changed the faces of both Miller and Blackbeard. A face full of surprises. The other's face was as ugly as pig liver. If Shock Fruit is transferred to Shiryu, Miller is naturally happy. If you count him, there will be 2 Shock Fruits in his pirate group in the future. Shiryu is strong in its own right, and now with Shock Fruit, there is bound to be a big improvement. Blackbeard wanted to cry without tears. At first he wanted to take Miller's copy fruit, but unfortunately failed. Realizing the gap between them, Blackbeard thought of Shock Fruit again, but it seemed that F*K failed again. He is very grief and indignant. Is there a man like Miller? You have copied them, and you have to transfer Shock Fruit to your subordinates, eat meat yourself, and don't even let outsiders drink any soup?